Welcome back to another exciting episode of Hey, did you see this one? This week we are continuing I guess we're rounding off and completing our journey through the month of May and into the first 2 weeks of June with movies based on movies adapted from Stephen King novels, novellas, or short stories. And, you know, it's been quite a journey, but we are finally here at the end with my personal favorite of the five we did. But rewatching all of these movies, some of those titles kind of like shifted in order. Ooh. They kind of went up and down. But again, I didn't select these based on like the best Stephen King adaptations, the most popular Stephen King adaptations, or even like the most obscure or most well-known. I chose them based on the ones that had an impact on me early in my life and stuck with me, either in terms of iconography or just some sort of imagery or tone or creepiness or whatever. Cool monsters. And The Mist has been one of those movies that I watch here and there every couple of years. It's one of those ones that I sometimes forget about until somebody says something in a weird way in real life. I'm like, that reminds me of The Mist. You're a person from The Mist, you idiot. Because I think we all learned everybody in The Mist is an idiot, but in the best way. Even like the smartest people are so dumb at points where you're like, come on, Ollie, you're supposed to be the brains of the operation. But yeah, I guess
I know it's true. There's so much stupid stuff in this.
But it's like fun, stupid. It's like an old-timey monster movie wrapped up with just like it's like social commentary, 2-part social commentary, 1-part B movie from the 1950s, 1-part weird Stephen King stuff, and then like 7 parts Frank Darabont just going
multiverse.
Yeah, 1-part multiverse, I'll say. Anyway, I guess we should go through and ask each of us all one by one when the first time we saw this movie was. And we'll start with Jason this week, please.
Oh, it's me, the first boy this week. I feel like I'm never picked to be first. Well, let's see. I saw this movie when it first came out. And since it came out, it's been, 15 years? 2007?
Yeah.
Since it came out, it's been one of those movies where you strike up a conversation with somebody at a restaurant or at a bar or a party. I don't mean like now. I mean like
you like tap some
10
other
years
table's
ago.
shoulder, like, excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, have you seen The Mist?
Did you know that there's something in The Mist?
But if you strike up a conversation with somebody about film and movies, The Mist always comes up. When it's like a list of movies that it's like, have you seen this and this and that? Hey, did you see this one? It's been one of those movies since it came out, and I remember watching it, and I've talked about on this show many times about around this time I was very squeamish when it came to scary movies and gore, and this movie was kind of perfect for people like that because there are some like pretty gross scenes that look ridiculous now because the CGI didn't hold up for a lot of it. But back then, it was just disgusting enough that it made you go, oh, but not so disgusting or scary that you're like,
did you see this one?
Did you see that one? So yeah, that was my introduction to the movie, and rewatching it this time, I remember why, and I know why now. It's brought into the conversation of like, maybe not best films of all time, but like best like B horror movie. Just feels good to watch it. It's very nice on the eyes to watch it.
Yeah, and it's got like it provides you with the appropriate amount of like emotional duress throughout, where you're like, like shaking your hand at the screen, and even if you've seen it like 100 times, you're still
stressed out.
Damn it!
But the ending, like, I don't know how desensitized I must be, because even in 2007, I was like, that's pretty fucked up, but it didn't like stay with me because I like pretty much forgot until I rewatched it how it ends up. I remember like the very last scene of like the military coming through.
Yeah.
But the part, we'll get into it, but the part that happens right before that, that slipped my mind. So
definitely did not slip my mind.
No,
it horrified me as a young boy.
It didn't move the needle for me very much. Weirdly, I don't know what that says about me.
Maybe
you were one of those kids. You lived in the neighborhood where all the neighborhood cats were vanishing. Is that what you're admitting to us right now?
The implication, dude.
Kaylin, why don't you tell us when the first time you saw The Mist was?
The other day, Steve.
Oh my God! So many of my movies you've never seen or heard of.
I can't believe you've never seen The Mist. That's crazy.
I lean more towards comedies. Like it's just kind of like where I naturally, like, is my natural interest goes to.
No, I'm laughing
right,
because you said my natural interest, and my brain was thinking my natural enemy.
Comedy is my natural enemy.
But yeah, no, like I've never gone out of my way to see, or like not back in the day anyway, like definitely more recently have been, and again, purpose of this show, I've been enjoying discovering these things that I, missed out on previously. Although at the same time, well, it could be, part of me sometimes thinks, because like sometimes you don't always appreciate, well, either a combination of maybe you don't appreciate it, or you just don't appreciate it the same way, like perceive it the same way as when you're a certain age versus another age. Right. And so some things are actually better to see later on, it feels like, almost. But yeah, like just in general, my normal go-to would be like comedies or like, superhero action kind of thing. So the other day was my first time. The cast did a banger job of being their characters, and like, for example, like the religious lady, Marcia Harden, I believe is her name. She, like, I hated her, and I'm sure she's not a bad person, but like I hated her in the movie. Like she had some redeemable qualities, like sort of, like
what?
But
name one redeemable quality that she has. She likes drinking milk straight out of the.
She died
jar.
real hard.
Yeah.
She died real hard.
She was an extremist. Like she wasn't like a good person, but like she, at the same time, the core of it, she wanted to help people or whatever, right? So like it was just in a very extremist, blind way or whatever. But like I really did not like her, and I was like, I'm watching it, I'm like, man, I fucking hate, like I really don't like this fucking lady, and I'm like, oh man, that's some good acting. Like, it's like that, like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's because it's not, you're not even thinking of it as acting or whatever, right? So a lot of the cast though, there's a lot of what's the other guy, the hick guy, who's like, you should have told me, or what did he say? You should have told me what you meant better.
Yeah. And I mean, if he had come out being like, it's clearly some sort of, monster pushing on the hanging door, he had to, David didn't know what it was. He was speculating as well. The fact that they sent that kid out.
He explained it pretty well. When he
was like,
I don't know.
Don't do that.
It was like something was pressing on the door, and it was a loud, weird noise, and I don't know what it was.
We don't know what's going on with the Mist. Yeah. Please do not do anything stupid yet. At the same
time, they saw a guy run back with blood, right?
Yeah.
So like, I didn't understand why they that was one thing that I was like, why aren't you guys taking it a little more serious at this point or whatever?
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, sorry, that was my first time, and we're gonna talk about it more.
We are. I agree with everything you said, except for that woman has redeeming qualities. She has absolutely zero. She has absolute zero redeeming qualities. None whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, the first time that I saw this movie was in, I think it was high school still, or it might have been just after high school. I can't remember. I was still a teenager, I believe, though. And at this point in my life, I had become excited by the prospect of a new Stephen King adaptation, as I had been, I had been exposed to a few of them at this point and enjoyed most of them that I had seen. And this one was like next level. I love this so much. I love thick, nasty smoke, and there's so much of it in this movie. I love.
That must have been hard for like editing or special effects or whatever.
I think it actually probably made it easier because they can hide a lot of stuff.
They could hide the CGI of the fucking.
Actually,
really bad.
I know I'm talking about the first time I watched this, but I watched it this time in black and white, which is how Frank Darabont wanted it to be made, but the studio was like, we cannot make a black and white movie. And the CGI it kind of like it does a great job of making the CGI look completely passable for most of it, because it is like a mixture of practical effects and computer generated stuff. And the black and white just kind of like makes it blend in a little bit easier. It doesn't look as janky and weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, that aside, I remember seeing this movie and afterwards being like, holy shit, man. Can you imagine if that happened? Like, driving home with my friends. Holy fuck. But, you know, I really enjoyed it the first time, and I have watched it quite a few times since then over the course of my life. And it is a fun one to kind of like pick apart in terms of thesis and just sort of like sifting through the different themes, and even just watching it at different points in your life. It can have a different sort of significance based on the time you're watching it in. Like watching it now, all I could think about was like a bunch of people hoarding toilet paper and shit when like a whisper of something happening goes on, and it's like the same thing is sort of happening at the beginning of this movie, right? Like all these people are running to the store because a giant storm just happened, and they're just like, we need to bunker down because we don't know when we're going to get our power back and all that. But I didn't see one person with a shopping cart completely filled with toilet paper.
No, but like this was reminiscent of Kaylin remembers Hurricane Juan and White Juan were both
White
like
Juan?
that, where the power was out for a week. And Steve, you probably remember
It was dope.
hearing,
The
yeah,
ice
it was
storm,
great.
yeah.
Well, the ice storm, but also many years ago, you guys had the big power outage.
It was the same. Oh, you mean that was 2003? That was like before this movie.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long ago. But anyway, yeah that's. I imagine
I didn't
there
even
was
think about that, but yeah, you're right. It was similar. Yeah, that was such a fun time. I was like, I don't know, it's like 14 or something, and I was just running around, and everything was complete darkness. I'm like, wah!
Yeah.
Let's go back to living off the land.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, what are you fucking nuts?
Kaylin, you're such a Luddite. You should just move to a you know,
a super rural area,
or move in with like the Amish, whatever the Amish people are called here in Ontario. That
Mennonites.
The Mennonites. You see them on like the bus and dressed in their cool Mennonite get-ups, and then you're like, wait a second.
Do they have the cool hat?
Oh yeah. Then you're like, wait a second, aren't they like not allowed? They're not on like Rumspringa. They're just traveling, and it's kind of like, did your parents get a divorce, and one of them is now living in the city? Like
one of them now has access to the internet.
Just has regular street clothes, and now you have to go back to your farm and raise a barn.
And sew your own threads.
Sorry, if there's any Mennonites watching tonight, I apologize. I don't know if that's offensive. Also, there's no way any Mennonites are watching because they don't have the internet.
Yeah.
Did you just burn them on your apology?
Yeah. I like the idea of one having a secret phone and like watching this show specifically. Yes. Our one viewer is like a family of Mennonites on their phone huddled under a blanket.
I feel like I need a shirt. I feel like I'm inappropriately dressed.
Just no nipples. You look great. Look at your arms.
Nah.
It's Pride Month. We need to sex up this show a little bit for Pride.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to a brief synopsis of the movie, The Mist. We can go through, I think, scene by scene while we discuss it, but let me just try and sum up the movie real quick. So the movie takes place in Maine. What a surprise. And an artist who specializes in movie posters for Hollywood is painting a painting of a mysterious stranger in the Dark Tower series, I guess.
It was,
it looked like, what's the guy's name? Not Dirty Harry. Who's the good, the bad, the ugly? The guy with no name or some shit?
No, it's, yes. Idris Elba plays him in the Dark Tower. It's the fucking cowboy.
Yeah, it's clearly inspired by The Man with No Name, but the movie The Dark Tower had not been made yet, so clearly, if it had been made, I'm sure it would have been Idris Elba with two names.
The guy in the painting was not a black man.
No, he was literally just Clint Eastwood, like with a slightly shadowy face. Anyway, so
can we talk about the painting before we continue? Can we quickly just talk about the paintings right quick?
Well, okay, fine. Let's just do it this way. I was gonna do a synopsis, but if it's gonna keep being like, let's talk about this for 1 second, we might as well just do it that way. What do you want to talk about the paintings then? Go ahead.
So it pans.
With your best shot.
Pans. I'll hit you with a couple. Here we come. Not like.
Wait, are you just gonna list the paintings?
No. Well, I'm gonna tell you my interpretations. You tell me if I got it right or not, or if you agree or whatever.
How are you somehow sexier now?
What the fuck?
I'm gonna go fill up my
It's probably the collar.
You look like a Backstreet Boy.
A Backstreet. Oh, I'm Kevin.
Do you want it that way?
Kevin.
Don't get us DCMA'd.
What? Oh, we're not allowed to say words. Not to a rhythm. Not to a rhythm that's noticeable.
That's a joke. That's a joke for comedy. Twitch, don't take us down for singing 1 second of "I Want It That Way." Sorry.
No, don't tell them. They never
okay, Kaylin, what do you want to say about the posters? You want to just like interpret them, or like you're gonna say the movie that you think they are? Is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah. So we pan. The first one I think is a clown, so it made me think of it. The second one looks like a kid holding a red balloon, so also made me think of it. The third one looks like faces behind prison bars, so I thought of Shawshank. Then we see the one he's painting, which I thought of Clint Eastwood's Good, the Bad, the Ugly or whatever, but I didn't really understand how that tied in with Stephen King. Then we see The Thing, which for some reason I thought was Stephen King, but as we were saying earlier, is John Carpenter. So maybe it's just the artist, because maybe the artist worked with both Stephen King and John Carpenter.
Looked directly at that painting and thought it was The Abyss, and was like, yes, The Abyss, a classic Stephen King movie.
Yeah,
which is just
all
wrong.
James Cameron wrote and directed it.
Yeah.
All of those things are wrong.
So not all of the almost none of the paintings have to do with Stephen King stuff.
Well, Pan's Labyrinth was the one that surprised me the most.
One.
Yeah,
is that the last one that had like some sort of?
It's the fawn. It's the fawn holding the little girl, and it's like just probably a concept piece that was done for the movie. And,
is that David Bowie movie?
No, that's Labyrinth.
That's just Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth is the Guillermo del Toro movie about. It's like kind of Alice in Wonderland, but
which
like
came out
Gothic.
1 year before this movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's probably like what most likely happened was the one with the bars. Like Frank Darabont, the writer and director of this movie, also wrote and directed the screenplays for Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, which is why Stephen King basically, when he came to him being like, "I want to make The Mist," he was like, "Yes, you make it.
You did good with those. Yeah,
you do The Mist because you're very good at adapting my works."
Apparently, he was happy with the ending that he came up with for this movie, which wasn't the original ending in the book. It's like, oh, I wish I thought that.
Yep.
It's bleaker than normal.
But yeah, the paintings, not all of them have to do with Stephen King. The prison ones, I agree. I'm like, it's probably just a nod to the fact that he worked on the two prison movies.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I didn't even notice the clown stuff. So, and I've seen this movie 100 million times.
Wow, that's more times than you have life.
Sorry?
Your exaggeration is not plausible.
Oh, okay. So I've seen it 100 times.
I said, Kayla, that was better comedy timing than mine. But what I did say was, you don't.
No, you did the setup. It was perfect.
Yeah. I set him up. You knock him down, brother.
You guys are calling me out for saying non-plausible things. God damn it! You know what the most non-plausible thing about the movie The Mist is that store only had one gun in it in America. And it was a hand cannon that like, I guess it made the person Andrea from The Walking Dead, who's just played the same character, like literally the same character in this, has a fucking hand cannon in her purse. Like, that was the biggest fucking gun. Like, typically, like, if a woman's going to carry around, like, a gun like that, like a concealed carry... Here we go. Jason and his lady gun corner again.
I don't know why you guys think
typically, if a woman carries a gun...
Look,
hold on, let me
she's got the purse.
Let's say it this way. When a person who's not a hillbilly
A
redneck.
person who carries a purse? Is that what you're saying?
A person who, well, dudes can carry purses too, and non-binary people can carry purses too. My point is this: the characterization of this particular person would not be carrying around a fucking, like, I don't know what kind of gun it was. It was a revolver.
Was it
It's
a
a
revolver?
9mm revolver.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a gun.
I think it's called what's it called? Snub nose.
Yeah, it was like a stub nose, but it was too big. Usually, you see those like smaller handguns for a purse,
350,
but also it's like start with pepper spray. Don't carry around the biggest gun you can find.
Well, it was her husband's idea. Remember? She said that.
Yeah.
That's true.
So he probably bought it and was like, "Yeah, this is good for a lady." He probably has big
Yeah.
He's a giant. He's 6'7", and he's like,
giant
this gun
sausage fingers.
is perfect for my tiny wife, and she's 6'1". That's why the gun still looked massive. Anyway,
but I think, I don't know if I've said this before, but that actor is in the movie Silent Hill, based on the video game, the first one. And in that movie, she whips her helmet off, has a short-sleeved cop shirt on, and blasts a monster. And I remember turning to my partner and being like, I've never been so turned on in my entire life. And I still to this day I'll watch that. I'll be like, "Hey, look, are you watching this? Are you watching this right now?"
I know Steve, you like a strong, muscly woman blasting.
Oh man, Xena.
Yeah.
It was like my childhood. Like I didn't realize what was going on.
Like you're
So,
coming
what's
of
going
age.
on with
Like
my
I hope this doesn't awaken something in me.
Yeah.
Lucy
Anyway,
Lawless
I
is
like
perfectly.
a lady who looks like she could kick the absolute shit out of me.
Her perfectly chiseled
I like
jaw.
skirts and kilts.
I was always a Gabby stan.
Yeah. So his art studio is
Really, at the art studio? Fuck.
Well, we skipped all the way ahead to Gun, and I'm
Okay,
like, oh, we need to
fair
go
enough.
back in time. The art studio, yeah. So we get a good look at that, and the family is looking out the window at a storm that's coming, and they go to the basement for safety. They recognize this is not a normal storm; it's pretty big and chunky. We should probably sleep in the basement, and luckily they do, because a giant tree crashes into their house and destroys the beautiful painting that he was clearly almost finished.
It was salvageable. Let's agree that.
Oh, I would have
was
saved that and
salvageable.
turned it into like a tote bag or something. It looked sick. Like,
It could have definitely had something done with it.
but he's also like a crazy, wicked artist, so he probably paints that kind of shit all the time and is like, whatever,
And
huck it.
he's like, we can just use what we have here, and they'll just CGI it, and it'll be fine, or they'll Photoshop it, and we'll just use it.
Oh yeah, he's like floating heads. He basically just shits on modern movie posters, which is great. I was very happy with that because he's right.
David needs to see what movie posters look like in 2022, because they're literally all just floating head posters. Every single one.
Yeah.
There's
But they
no
are-
cool.
The big boys, they do pay actual like painters to paint those now, but they have the idea of what they want. They're like, there's going to be 80 characters on the poster. Some of them are going to be this big, and some of them are going to take up most of the screen.
And the Star Wars ones are floating head, but they all look fucking dope as shit. I think that they do a really
Yeah,
good
I
job
mean,
with
time in
Star
Hollywood.
Wars and the Marvel ones are pretty good at making them look cool. Anyway, his work is destroyed, and his son is pretty excited. Which, I feel like if I was that kid at that time, I probably would have been excited too. And like, look at all this devastation, crazy.
He killed it. Yeah. The
I'm
kid
still
killed
like
it.
that.
Oh man, when the ice storm happened in Brampton, I was running around that day being like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I parked my car on the other side of Brampton and I have to walk to get it. And I was like, look at everything. Everything's covered in ice. It's crazy. It's like Mr. Freeze showed up and fucked up Brampton for some reason.
Brampton, Ontario, for those
Or-
watching from the United States, or wherever you're watching from around
It's
the
a
world.
suburban city outside of Toronto.
Toronto is also in Canada, if you don't know. You never
Canada is part of North America, if you didn't know.
And if you zoom out further, we're on the planet Earth.
know. And if you
I was
zoom out
hoping- I was
further,
hoping someone would do that.
we're in the galaxy known as the Milky Way galaxy.
All right. We're going too far now. I don't know if we have fans all the way out there.
We don't get any Mars fans. Where's our Mars fans?
They'll
Anyway.
get this in a couple light years or whatever.
Yeah.
Couple late years. But then they discovered that their boathouse has been crushed by a tree.
Flattened.
then we get to meet the neighbor.
We get to meet the neighbor, who is the best actor who ever lived.
Yeah.
And has the best opening scene ever.
Yeah, his name's Andre Braugher. He plays Brent Norton, and he is just cursing up a storm while trying to start a chainsaw.
I loved it. I loved it so much.
For those who don't know, Steve, who does he play in modern pop culture?
Well, I think most people will know him as Captain Raymond Holt on the television show Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he is a comedic genius.
It's the funniest. It's one of the funniest, like, straight men. Ironically, he's gay on the show, but it's one of the it's one of the funniest straight man characters probably in television history. It is brilliant because he plays the straight man, but like he plays the straight man so hard that the things he says are just absolutely comedically fine-tuned, like a piano. I don't want to like riff off a bunch of his lines because we could go forever, but like it's great. He's great, and like, you know, at this point he was just playing this type of character, like a very, like, you know, tightly wound asshole, which, you know, they harnessed that sort of character trope in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and like, let's have him play that same character, but imagine he's so insanely that character that he'll always be the foil in every situation that it's going to come off as extremely. I really like what they did here, though, where they show him, they have some exposition about how David and him are at odds. They're neighbors. He even says something along the lines of, like, you know, a dispute with this guy is worse than the storm we just had, or whatever. A dispute with this guy. It's not worth the, like, headache that I'll have. Because, and you know, it's revealed throughout the story that they've had a previous land dispute based on like property lines. Yeah, he sued David at one point. But the thing is we get this weird moment where he walks over. His car, his beautiful BMW, I think, has been smashed. It's like a classic car by a tree. And I think it's a Chrysler. Yeah, and then David's like, "Oh shit, man! Like, I guess my old shed doesn't really matter when your fucking beautiful car is destroyed." And they had that moment. And then they drive to town together, which is the next part that you're probably about to talk about. And they have a really nice back and forth. So they have, like, they almost form a friendship. It's not even tenuous. It's not even a friendship. It's more like a respect that they now realize they have for one another, you know. But it takes a turn. I know. I've read the novella for this, which is one of the few that I have for the movies, and it's because I like the movie so much. I'm like, I gotta read the story. And the character of Brent Norton in the book is like really kind of slimy and gross, and there's a lot of like, I remember his introduction is like they're having a conversation and then the wife comes out of the house, and like the way he wrote it is like he like eyes her up and down like a really gross, sleazy creep. And I'm kind of glad they didn't do that, because I think I got everything I needed about the interaction between these two in the past throughout their small interactions going forward in the movie, that I understood that like these guys at one point were probably having shouting matches, and like over their hedge, or just like seeing each other on the driveway and like giving each other like some cocked like evil eye sort of thing, and like that the wife, not in so many words, says don't go over there and punch him out for his tree, because the whole thing is the tree, you can clearly see as it's smashed this thing, it's dead tree, and then he's oh, the tree that I told him to cut down years ago has now smashed something on my side of the fence. And you know, he'll keep all of his teeth today is what he says before he goes over, something along those lines. And basically you get the feeling that like they might have, there's been cops there. There's been police there probably for domestic dispute. Yeah. And, you know, through it's very expository, but like those conversations they have, but it's more to set up what's going on, the confusion. But like you said, there is this sort of like mutual respect, and they're helping each other, which is nice. And you feel like a genuine niceness, because I think that the movie achieved its goal of making you really know that these guys probably don't like each other. And they're getting over that because there's something going on. There's something bigger than the two of them, and they realize that they need to help each other because they're two human beings, and that's what human beings. That's what we need in life. We need a bigger problem to bring us all together. We tried that already. You mean like COVID? We tried that already, and we did a thing where there was a bigger problem within the bigger problem with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, and we still couldn't get it together. And here
You're
we
right,
are.
I'm wrong.
And everybody's like, why don't
Yeah.
we take all our masks off now? And everybody's like,
No, but those
I have
problems
COVID.
are with us. We need bigger problem outside of us.
no, like if aliens came to Earth, do you know what would happen? Have you seen the movie Arrival? That's what would happen. all
Or
of the
this
in
movie?
Arrival
That movie
or
was
this
good.
movie. In Arrival, all of the nations fight over who can communicate with the aliens first, and it almost becomes a world war.
All right, yeah, true.
And the fucking Russians are like, I will nuke you if you keep trying to talk to these aliens. I'm
We want to
paraphrasing.
talk to them first. But
But
yeah, no, I
Arrival.
mean, that's there are lots of science fiction movies that kind of take that sort of take that route, right? And then there's like an equal amount that take the other route, where it's like, well, we're finally all peaceful. Like that's what Star Trek is in its entirety. Is like the Vulcans came down and greeted humanity, and humanity then became united. And like that's the beautiful thing we want to think is going to happen, but it's far more likely, just based on the crazy events of the last few years, that something like The Mist would happen.
It's more
where
likely the
everybody would lock
Klingons are going to
themselves.
come down and fucking try to assimilate us.
Oh, way to put it on the aliens, Jason. I'm trying to talk about how
Yeah,
shitty
maybe we're
humanity
trying to
is, and
fuck
you're
them.
blaming the Klingons.
Everybody's
Come on.
shitty. I think that other humanoid creatures are equally as dumb and petty.
Yeah. But what you were saying before about them putting the past behind them it's nice, and it's like it sets this thing up where you're like, oh, maybe these guys are going to be like allies, because you know sort of that this movie's not going to end well for the human beings in it, and they're sort of slowly trickling characters at you one by one and showing the niceties of people and the pleasantries, people just giving each other small waves or a little bit of banter within the line, the checkout. And even like the fact that the kid is like, can I go with Mr. Norton? Like this kid doesn't even really care that his dad had a fight with this guy. He just knows that this guy's his neighbor. So he's like, let me go with Mr. Norton. I want to go with Mr. Norton. I like Mr. Norton. And he's like, yeah, if as long as you hold his hand or whatever. And like Brent is like, yeah, that's fine. Completely fine. And they go off together. He trusts this man enough, even though they've had their differences, with the safety of his son, which is like nice to me, right?
I do like the juxtaposition of them walking into a small town and everybody's like nice to each other, but then like 15 minutes later, after the shit hits the fan, they all start bringing up the small town bullshit to each other. And some of that small town bullshit is small town, and some of that small town bullshit is literally like, you're an outsider, you're from the big city,
Yeah.
And it's I love how it turns, and it really shows. It's a really good microcosm. It's a lot like what is it, Day of the Dead, the one with the mall.
That's Dawn of the Dead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know all the Dead movies, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
They
I
don't get
forgive
in,
you.
or the Thing, where people in a tight space, or the early Walking Dead, like the first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead did it really well. Frank Darabont, of course, where you get this tension, and it's not like The Walking Dead later, where it's just like factions fighting each other's lame. It's like you get this tension between like two people in the same. They're stuck in a fucking prison, or they're stuck in a tiny town, and they can't
and
leave.
It's not even black and white in the way that you would think it would be, because like you said, like there's overlap in that mistrust, or the misplaced mistrust, when there's like a scene where the small town people are shitting on Thomas Jane David because he's a big fancy guy with connections in Hollywood and blah blah blah, but then
I went
Norton
to college.
later is
Mom
like,
goes to college.
and then later Norton is like, you guys are just backing him because I'm from the city and you're all locals, and I lost in that property dispute, and you guys are all backing him up. And like he is saying the same thing that they're saying about him, and it's like they're literally using. It's like when you watch like a debate, when people are debating over like trans issues or something, and like they're both saying the same thing but in a different way to like diffuse each other's arguments, and it's like, yeah, that's how like human nature is like you believe something so strongly you're willing to just fall to illogical decision making in order to support the foolish thing that you believe.
Well, right around this time too, I guess we've kind of just moved forward, but Ollie says like, the reason why religion is created is because you put people in a room who don't know what's going on, and they're either going to fall to chaos, they're going to fall to being in each other's throats, or they're going to fall to whoever has the next good idea. And
well, that's
then,
way later in the movie.
And then, I know. Sorry,
you said right around this time.
Well, it kind of goes
like
like
an hour later.
It kind of goes. Well, you know, the shit hasn't really hit the fan at that point. It's just like moments before they see the first tentacle. That's tentacle.
Tentacle.
We call it We call them They come up so frequently on this program that we call them tentaclets. But it's a tentacle. Sorry.
What do you call other things?
I don't care.
So yeah, we're now sort of in the grocery store. He leaves his son with Mr. Norton. Then he goes and calls his wife on the payphone over by the pharmacy, which becomes a pretty interesting set piece later on. But through this moment, you're kind of getting glimpses of the other people without actually sort of getting to know who they are. You know, you see Mrs. What's her name? Mrs. Hatterdy or something? The crazy woman. Mrs. Carmody.
I thought it was Mrs. Comedy. So that's how I remember. It's
Welcome to the Mrs. Comedy podcast.
It's Comedy?
It's Carmody.
Carmody, yeah.
All misses, all comedy,
all the time.
A very Stephen King character, but I mean, like, a lot of the characters in this are very Stephen King.
All their names are very Stephen King, like Mrs. Rippler and Mrs. Trunlow or whatever. It's just made up. I
just ruined my white shirt.
Perfect.
And then we get Darth Maul himself. Sam Witwer shows up. Is
that Darth Maul?
The manager?
He's the voice of Darth Maul. He's the voice of Darth Maul in the cartoon show.
Oh.
And in the video game, and he does the Emperor.
Yeah, because in the
great job.
In the movie, he's what's his face? He also plays Toad in X-Men, right?
Darth Maul.
This is a different
actor. Yeah,
this is a different person. Sam Witwer is in the Star Wars Force Unleashed video games. He's like the face and voice. Like they've mocapped him and everything.
Oh, is that the army guy? The main army guy. Yeah, the one who looks like he's been chiseled in stone. His face, that chin, my God. Who immediately finds the most attractive girl in the place and has a history with her, and they almost bang.
And they should have, because man, she missed out, and she dies.
Both of them missed out, quite frankly. That's a sex scene that I was like, oh man.
I always thought that Sam Witwer. I always thought that Sam Witwer, if they ever made like an Evil Dead remake, could do a good Ash. Like, he could be a good Ash. He has like that beautiful chiseled face, and he has the acting chops, at least in his voice acting, that I've heard over the years. Like, he could pull it off, and I feel like they should do it, but I know they'll never do it because Bruce Campbell is still so good at it.
And there's already a remake franchise that I think they're making a sequel to, right?
No, that's not a remake. That just takes place in the same universe. It's like the same cabin, the same book.
Oh, same sex tree.
It's almost like it's not a remake, basically.
I thought it was a remake, and it's one of the goriest things I've ever seen in my life. Like, I was fully desensitized, and it was on one Sunday afternoon in this like cabin, and I was like, this is too meta. And also, this movie is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's a spectacle of gore.
It makes me squeamish, and I'm pretty okay with most gore. And I'm like, no tongue stuff. Why are you gonna do that with the tongue?
Yeah, no like close-ups on like a splitting body that looks super realistic. Like, there's a lot of no eye stuff. You don't like that? Not really. I need.
They did a very good job of making everything.
So what you're saying is you could never be a surgeon.
No, I could definitely never be a surgeon or a doctor or a nurse or anybody that has to look into orifices.
I don't want to blow your mind here, but we're all way too old to ever become surgeons at this point.
Yeah, look at this.
I need more wine.
I'm going to be an astronaut.
A pint of wine, nurse, stat. A megapint?
It seems necessary.
It's necessary.
Is Megapint one of our viewers? Is that what I was understanding?
No, it's one of our names for our viewers. Our sea urchins, our true seers, and our megapints.
The megapint.
Anyway, so we get a brief.
Let us know in the chat what you are.
We get a brief little moment with the soldiers where the military police, the MP officer shows up and he chastises them for leaving the base. And this is the first we're kind of understanding, like, okay, this town must be close to a military base of some sort because these guys are here in full uniform and their MP officer is showing up and telling them to go back to base. And he's like, I'm going to go over to the pharmacy. You guys meet me back by the Jeep in 5 minutes. And he leaves. And they're like, all right, let's go get some cigarettes or whatever. And then we get introduced to the Mrs. Carmody, who is immediately just rude to people. Like she's not being pleasant to anybody. Ollie is like kind of rolling his eyes at her. Ollie is the bag boy who's like 40 or like more. He actually is probably older than 40. He's like 50 maybe.
Ollie?
Yeah.
Ollie was probably my favorite, actually.
He is the best, except for he does one of the dumbest things in the movie for the character who's supposed to be like, he seems like he has the best head on his shoulders out of everybody, and then he does one of the dumbest things. And, you know, you get little glimpses of each character. You get the elderly woman, Mrs. Repler, who's like, you know, she's, I guess, the elder school teacher, which you learn later, which she seems to know the little boy, and you're like, okay, she knows him, so she's probably works for the school. It's a small town. And
I should mention before we move on too far that Ollie is in the MCU, and he's in a bunch of other stuff too, but he's in the MCU most notably in Captain America as Red Skull's like right-hand man, and then he becomes
like Ziegler or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then he gets his brain gets put into like an old fucking 1950s computer. And that's the closest we get to a MODOK, an MCU MODOK.
I was glad to see him back in the animated series, the What If, where he basically becomes Ultron.
Yeah, he's also in Winter. He gets the Ultron thing at the end of What If, but also he's in Winter Soldier, and he's basically the MCU version of MODOK, which they're never going to do. Wasn't a MODOK.
He in Infinity War, or not Infinity War? Wasn't he in the first Avengers? I mean.
No, he died. He escapes at the end of first Avenger.
That guy's in the Marvel universe. Is like they didn't make that character up for the movies. Like he was in the first Avenger as like a Nazi scientist and
whatever.
And he is a version of MODOK in the comic books too. That's why I always say that like we're never gonna get a real full on floating head guy MODOK. I love that dumb character. If you do want that, there is a version of him.
Yeah, the Robot Chicken show.
It's a Robot Chicken sort of parody.
Robot Chicken is dope.
But it's a parody of B villains, starring Patton Oswalt as MODOK, and it's like done with action. It looks like action figures. So
he's also the showrunner, so it's funny. He wrote it and everything. I watched a bit of it. It was actually pretty good.
I watched all of it. I thought it was great, and it was in one of those between times when there was no Marvel show, so it was great.
Awesome.
I think it's on Disney Plus now.
Yeah, it's part of Star. It's like a Star show.
Right.
If you're listening, Disney, you can pick us up anytime.
Yeah, we're promoting all your stuff right now.
I'll get my own MCU show. It'll be called Jason Plays Video Games on Stream. And it'll have 3 viewers.
So at about this time in the movie, you hear a man bust through the door yelling, "There's something in the mist took John Lee!"
Actually, it's Dale from The Walking Dead.
Title shout out, 12 minutes, 3 seconds.
Actually, he says the mist.
Because he doesn't say...
he says the mist at 12 whatever, but at 3:45... Thomas Jane almost looks at the camera and says, "Mist. It's a mist coming down from the mountain."
You're telling me that in a movie called The Mist, they said mist early in it? When the mist showed up?
Listen, one of my favorite tropes in movies and television is a mist having monsters in it, because in the video game Final Fantasy IX, actually a mist rolls over the world and monsters start appearing. And that movie actually predates that game actually predates this movie by about 8 years, because that game came out in 1999.
The short story came out in the 80s.
God damn you!
In your face!
In my face.
Also, there's a movie called The
Crushing
Fog
your
that
dreams.
came out in the 50s, and it had a remake in the 80s directed by John Carpenter.
Some say... Oh, yeah, I knew that, too. Some say that there's no way that the Final Fantasy IX having missed where the monsters are could be anything more than a trope because people made things before it.
Let's just agree that Final Fantasy is full of tropes, and that's fine. You just have to stop saying it predated things because it never ever will have predated a thing that already did it.
The joke there was that I was rambling about a fucking Final Fantasy.
I know, and the
game
joke
again.
here is that I'm telling you to stop. Stop this.
The punchline for the joke was hilarious. I didn't know it was a joke during the setup.
Explaining the joke makes it funnier.
Sometimes.
Never.
But yes, he is in The Walking Dead. You're right. Jeffrey DeMunn or DeMunn.
I think it's like DeMunn. Yeah.
Also
it looks like Jeffrey Tambor, but like not.
Yeah, he looks like Bela Lugosi, but less Dracula.
But alive.
So he's a Darabont regular. That's why he's in The Walking Dead, and that's why he was in. He was in The Green Mile. I'm not sure if he was in Shawshank, but I do know that he was in The Green Mile. He's one of the guards. He's one of the nice guards. You know, the one who gets really pissed off when Percy steps on the mouse or whatever.
I'll get you your Mr. Noodle, sir.
Your Mr. Noodle?
I don't know. I assume that's what nice guards get for people in prison.
I'll get you some Mr. Noodles. Oh, man. Some instant ramen. But yeah, he comes in the grocery store. He's got a little bit of blood coming out of his nose on his shirt. And he's screaming about John Lee being taken by something in the mist. And immediately is like, lock the doors, dear God, lock the doors. And then we cut to the mist rolling in heavily. And this is when you're like, oh, it's not no regular mist. It's literally just like a wave, like a slow moving wave that's just billowing in faster than most people can run to their cars. And, he tells everybody not to leave. And the one guy runs out and you immediately hear him like just dying. And that's
El Camino with some fancy ass rims for a little town place. But maybe that's what they do in little town.
I miss the El Camino.
I mean, it seems like this is a place where rich people also have like lake homes and stuff, right? Like,
true. Yeah.
It's like locals who drive pickup trucks with shotguns on a shotgun rack behind their head, and rich people who are lawyers and just visit on the
have
weekend.
Giant homes right by the lake that probably only cost them $400,000.
That probably pisses them off.
Well, there was a subtext in this whole movie that even what's his name? What's Captain Holt's name in this movie? I didn't write
Brent?
it.
Norton.
Morton?
Norton.
Brent Norton seems like
related to Edward Norton.
Nope. Impossible in multiple ways.
No, it's not.
Edward Norton's a real person, and this person is a fictional black man. What I noticed is that, like Steve was saying earlier, they kind of take his side because he won the land dispute, but he also brings up, he's the first person to be like, you don't like us because we're from out of town. And that right there says to me that he probably already went through a thing that Thomas Jane's character David is going through right now in this, like, later, where he's trying to win over the people, but he also, like, doesn't care. It seems like he's, like, it's like the Stephen King self-insert. It's a lot like in 1408 with John Cusack's character, who kind of just, like, is like, kind of above, he's kind of snarking above it. But David's, like, not that. He seems like an everyman, but it still has a modicum of fame, you know?
The thing you need to realize about Stephen King's writing is that almost every single one of his books is from a first-person perspective.
I know, every main character is pretty much him. And the most glaring thing about this one is that this guy's a painter who does, like, horror movie posters, and Stephen King was probably like, I'm gonna change it up a little this time.
Yeah, he's a writer.
No.
Artist.
He's on a typewriter?
Yeah, he's just...
That was a good sound effect. That actually sounded really good.
But my point is I felt like Morton had already been through this. That's why he was able to like sort of get on people's nerves with what he was saying and get people back on his side, because he actually is when. Did we get to the? Are you at the part with where they fucking with Sherman yet? With the Shermanator?
No.
Okay. I haven't even gotten there yet.
Let him do.
We're an hour into this show, so I don't know.
We're not though, because we started like 15 minutes late.
Fair enough.
Anyway, like we can skip ahead a bit, because not a lot happens between the mist showing up and them realizing, oh, maybe we shouldn't go out. But
they do their toxic masculinity. No, I'm gonna go. No,
Yeah.
It was my idea. I want to go.
well,
No,
wait, we
don't
got to
go,
set that
man.
up
We don't
first,
know what's
because
out there.
we got to set that up first because what happens is that Thomas Jane goes back because he smells the gasoline from the generator. It's backing up.
Well,
And so he goes back there and turns it off.
he smells the
and-
gasoline, but I think it's more than that.
What do you mean?
Because they're like,
He
it smells awful. There's something stuck in the vent. I think one of
Right.
those bugs from later is stuck in the vent, but it's like a weird subtextual.
So when I watched this movie, I always thought that the tentacles that were pressing on the loading bay door was like wrapped around wherever the intake valve or
Yeah,
whatever for
that works
the
for me as well.
generator was.
That works
That's how
for
I
me
always
as well.
that's how I always thought it was happening, because like those bugs, like the little flying
They come
ones,
later.
I always thought that was like a nighttime thing, right?
Let me do this too before we move too far, because we skipped over when they're driving into town. They bring up Project Arrowhead, and this is what I was going to mention to you during the pre-roll before we went live, and I just want to get this out now because it'll drive me nuts if I don't. So the subtext of the drive is that there's this military complex up on the hill where the mist came from. And there's a Project Arrowhead going up there. Everybody's, talking about it in town. And the crazy conspiracy lady, who I think is supposed to be Miss Carmody,
I don't know.
or is it
because
or is it
she-
Carol
religious
from
one?
she
or is it
doesn't seem
Carol from The Walking Dead? Anyway, somebody that we may not meet this character is a conspiracy nut, and they're like, what a ridiculous notion. They think it's frozen aliens up there. So welcome to Jason's Conspiracy Corner for this movie. I think it's at the end of Dreamcatcher, the military rounded up the remains of something, or that alien, that spacecraft that crashed that we didn't really see what happened to, and they took it to this facility and they froze it. But inside of the disc there was a whole bunch of flora and fauna from this planet, because for whatever reason it's like a Noah's Ark. And that's what I wrote down in my notes. I think a Noah's Ark was what crashed, right, in Dreamcatcher, and they took it up and they froze it. And this massive electrical storm was big enough in this little town where Project Arrowhead was being like kind of like an Area 51 situation, and that it took the power out because it was the biggest fucking electrical storm of all time. And that mist coming down off the hill, and the mist that engulfs the town, is like almost like a life source or a lifeblood that was was unfrozen,
Atmosphere, maybe.
like an atmosphere, and then those things were reanimated and came down.
But they said they were trying to open a portal. Remember when?
Yeah,
I do
that's
remember
my-
that. I do remember that from the
my
first.
rebuttal to your theory is that the military guys literally say they were trying to open a window to another dimension. And
Well, maybe you opened a door.
we don't know exactly what they were doing, and then the ladies well, maybe your window turned out to be a door. And I think that the mist is the door opening, and that's what the whole other dimension is, just full of that mist. So
And
the
that's-
mist is just continuously pouring out of
But
the
that's
door
what I
until they
always
close
thought about this movie until literally I watched Dreamcatcher, and there were some really bad loose
I like the
loose
connection.
ends. And maybe the door was part of the frozen alien, because they're joking around about it being frozen aliens. And it honestly, I remember it being pretty clear in the movie that they fucked around with a portal and found out. But this time watching it, the fact that they bring up the fact that a conspiracy nut thinks it's frozen aliens leads me to believe it might be some sort of combination.
Ooh, yeah.
If you read the
You
subtext,
sound like the nut right now.
aliens.
You sound like the
I-
nut. So I think the point of bringing
sound
up
like a
the
sane man.
person thinking that it's a frozen alien is they could have easily said some people think it's Sasquatch nesting area.
But
there.
here's the
Like,
smoking gun, Steve.
Oh, is there a misty gun, you say?
The misty gun. The tentacle had the exact same sucker part as the sucker part from the leeches. And now, I'm not saying they are the same thing, but they're very similar in...
Related.
They could be from the same planet, is all.
Okay.
I like this theory. I think this is a good theory, actually.
All right, put it in the books. Jason's Theory Corner.
Jason's Conspiracy Theory Corner.
Oh, Jesus.
I think that, it is very cool to have a Stephen King connected universe in the same way that the Marvel universe has one. But I do think that he fucks around way more with interdimensional stuff.
That's true.
Than anyone else.
The whole crux of the fucking Dark Tower is that different doors go to different planes. Yeah.
It's like
Do I need to watch Dark Tower?
The Shining is like a person. No, you don't need to.
No, he wrote the Dark Tower to retcon everything.
It's a terrible movie.
He wrote the Dark Tower to retcon everything into the same universe, and then they made a movie of it that doesn't really do that.
That's not why he wrote it.
I think that's why he did it. I think he was like, I've already shared the universe a little bit. What if I made a hub?
So here's the thing with Stephen King is that he literally has a connected where he sets things in like an Erie, Indiana, but it's like for adults.
Scary,
and he wants everything to be connected in a weird way, and he was doing that for a long time. But he wrote so much, and it got so out of control that he literally had to start hiring people to come in and like connect it all together. And like when he's writing a new thing, he'll have to like consult his experts on his team to be like, so is this good? And they're like, well, it doesn't really connect to it.
I imagine it's like the people who keep the Simpsons show Bible behind the scenes.
Yeah,
because
it's basically trying to connect things that were not connected when the idea was originally started, and then connecting them afterwards. So I'm sure that there is a way within the Stephen King connected universes to connect the Mist to Dreamcatcher in some way. I just don't think it's the way that you're saying that they took.
Oh, it's definitely not.
There and, and like poked it, and a bunch of mist came out of it.
What if the ship from Dreamcatcher was the first thing that came through the door?
Well, they're aliens.
They're literally it's an alien spacecraft that crashed. My point is that we don't see what happens to that space. There's that fight where they fucking blast all the aliens, and then they don't talk about it anymore. And then we're supposed to believe that there's one alien that is gonna I'm gonna put myself on the water supply, and then that's it. They kill that guy and that's it. There's a whole fucking crime scene of dead aliens and a spacecraft crash that is never addressed again.
This movie is far more interesting when you analyze the characters' interactions with themselves, rather than focus on the logistics of the.
We weren't supposed to talk about this long. To be fair, I was watching this movie with a different set of eyes, and it goes back to what Kaylin was saying earlier about how some movies maybe you're supposed to watch later in life, and some movies you like fucking Little Trouble in Big China. I was definitely meant to see that movie when I was 8 years old.
Yeah. well, again, this movie, it deals with sweeping concepts, and the thesis of it, on a surface level, is what if a cloud of mist came in? What's in the mist? What kind of horrifying, monstrous creatures are in the mist? But the idea of it really is what about the internal mist that we all have inside of us, and what kind of monster lies there, and what happens in a moment of duress, and
it's somehow retroactively a metaphor for COVID, for the pandemic. Somehow,
I mean, it really is.
Everything.
Happened. The thing is that we don't remember crazy tragedies and pandemics and things that happened before our time, but there are people that are alive still that remember them.
Yeah.
I don't think to the scale of COVID, but there were other things that happened that were the same thing that caused people to go a little bit insane. And
World War I, II,
like
Vietnam,
you were saying,
Gulf,
yes,
Iraq.
Wars. We don't have to really worry about wars anymore in the way that we did, because we have enough military in most of our established countries that those militaries can fight each other, and we never really have to worry about.
Well, the next time we have to,
a young man.
But the next time we have to worry about a war on that scale will probably end humanity, because nukes will come into play, and then large swaths of the planet will be uninhabitable. Similarly to dude, I'm serious.
I know, but you're so pessimistic.
If you nuke the Midwest, that just you're gonna have a Southland Tales situation on your hands.
Jason's like, I feel like Jason goes to bed and he puts music on to go to sleep, and the song is like, I don't want to put the world on fire.
Dude, I saw Chicago this last weekend, and I'm pretty sure like 2 of the songs are in Fallout. So I've been thinking in the Fallout universe a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I just thought we were getting a little bit too deep into like, how do we connect this to another movie, which they're not meant to be. He didn't write them with the idea of connecting them together,
right?
And this movie is not meant to evoke Dreamcatcher in the same way, because that's a whole other character study. And that's one of the nice things about Stephen King's writing, is that it's always set from one person's perspective for the most part, and you get who they are throughout, and then you get little glimpses of who these other people are. And that's very much what happens in this movie. And like, as you're kind of walking your way through the movie with Thomas Jane holding your hand, you're seeing all these other people sort of devolve. And yeah, he's holding our hand, but he's constantly shoving his son away to go to somewhere.
Well, yeah, on that note, I did make a note in my notes that was like, I think one of the best pieces of acting in this movie is Thomas Jane's child, like acting with a child in a believable, like, I'm your father,
yeah, man,
is
agree.
the best acting like in this whole thing. Time. I was like, is this his actual son?
Yeah. There were so many times where it was weird. Like, I was thinking about times where I was a kid and I was like upset, and like how my dad would be like, "Oh, it's all right, bud." Like, yeah. And like, he wouldn't do what Thomas Jane is doing in this movie, where I'm like, Thomas Jane seems like a very good dad, even though he is continuously leaving the child to go do some hero bullshit.
Because he's some hero bullshit,
yeah. Like, over and over again. But it's like, you need that to happen for the movie to progress. But like, he always...
Also the impact of... I won't say anything.
Oh. I stopped my thought to hear your point, Kaylin. What were you going to say?
The impact of I feel it helps make the impact of the ending...
Oh, yeah.
That
a little bit more tragic, yeah. So anyway, should we keep going through the
yeah,
story,
no, keep doing our timeline. We're at the point now where these guys go into the back room. Thomas Jane goes back into the main area, and he's like, "Did you guys hear that?" And they go through the thing we've already established, which is they're like, "Listen, man, just because you're from a big city and you know how to paint doesn't make you better than me. Not in my book, all right?" And you're like, "Okay, dude, I just wanted to let you know that I heard a scary sound." That guy is William Sadler, by the way. He's a great actor. He's in lots and lots of stuff. He's very good, yeah.
He's also one of the guards. I think he's one of the guards in Shawshank as well. Anyway, great actor, and he really does a good job of being the most consistently inconsistent character in the movie, which is like, if you're gonna have an inconsistent character, they have to consistently be inconsistent, which is what he is. Like, the whole time he like says one thing, does another. You know, he's like, we can do this, just because you say we can't do it doesn't mean we can't. And then a second later, he doesn't do the thing that he says he's gonna do, which is make sure the kid goes out and unblocks the intake valve safely. He freezes up as soon as he sees tentacles.
Chicken shit. Yeah, exactly.
He was a big man talking shit to Thomas Jane until he like saw that tentacle, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know, man. You should have explained it better."
Them cartoon Japanese porno sites.
I thought that was like them hentais that I look at.
Tentacles. That's what they're called.
Tentacles.
But he freezes up. A bunch of dog food gets rained down on him as they raise up the gate for the Shermanator to go out and unblock the intake valve for the generator. But there's some good back and forth here that does establish that they probably don't like Thomas Jane at all and never have. They're being polite enough to him up to a certain point. But then it goes into like that B-movie territory where as soon as he's like, "Wait, you're gonna let this kid like risk his life for a generator that doesn't even matter? Are you guys being thick on purpose?" And he's like, "Listen, man, you better count your teeth the next time you talk to me, because I'm tired of your bullshit.
And it's
like, oh my
he
God.
really flies off the handle like immediately, and it's like you get that feeling that.
But you know that you can feel that he was holding back all
Yes.
of that the entire
Yeah.
time, and he just wanted to say that the whole time, and it finally came out. And
He
like
gave him a reason to.
you know, I've met people like that in real life who will just snap on a dime, but it's because they've been trying to not let out what they're actually feeling, and then they do. And I think that Ollie kind of explained it in a really great way, which was that these guys are pretty simple dudes, and they currently are feeling completely useless in this situation. And they now have a problem, even though it might be a very small problem. They know how they can solve it, and they are going to solve it. So the best thing for us to do is to let them try and solve it. Which I was like, wow, that's a really good way to think about certain types of brains, where they're like super frustrated because they're scared and they don't know what to do, and they literally don't know how to help. And then there's all of a sudden there's something that they can help with. Like, they're like, I know about generators. And then later you see those same guys like setting up all the lights, and like they're like, we only got about 5 minutes of power on these things. And you're like, oh, these guys know about this type of thing, so that's going to be their thing throughout the movie. And
That's their good quality. We all want to be like valued.
you want to be helpful, yeah. And like, but even to a point that it ends up being detrimental later, because when they realize that they need to turn all the lights on, they told him earlier, in an emergency, turn all the lights on. So as soon as an emergency starts happening, he goes around and starts turning every single light on in the store. But the reason that the emergency is happening is because there's too much light. So it's like he's running around thinking he's doing a good thing, but really he's just fucking it up even more, right?
Some good chaos. There's some good chaos in a couple of those moments in this.
Yes. Sorry, I have to go to the washroom really badly.
Go to the bathroom.
Welcome back to Jason's Conspiracy Corner. I think
more
that,
conspiracies.
Can we Muppetize this while you're in the bathroom?
Kaylin, can you please Muppetize this while Steve's gone?
All right. So let's see. I have the cast of this movie up. Okay. I mean, it's almost kind of like automatic that the main has to be Kermit.
How are we gonna Muppetize June Henson? The Jim Henson month. Sorry, go ahead. Thomas Jane is Fozzie, because I find they kind of look alike.
What we can do is have the June Henson month interact with the Muppets and like make up conversations they would have or something.
Statler and Waldorf for the rednecks.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. That's a good one. Actually.
The biker guy who has like 2 lines is Monster.
I kind of like Beaker for Shermanator.
Okay, yeah. Oh shit, Steve's back. And then I think that the juxtaposition between the capitalized M in the name The Mist really juxtaposes the I.
You guys are talking about how I'm annoying when I talk about film stuff.
No, we were Muppetizing. We were the other thing you don't like.
That's what the true capitalized M was for the word Muppets.
Muppet.
Sons of bitches.
We did it again. We Muppetized it behind your back. I had Statler and Waldorf for the rednecks, and I think that's and Kaylin said Beaker for the Shermanator, and I think those are good casting.
into the mist.
What about what's the scientist's name that's with Beaker? What about him for Ollie?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's like, well, I was actually a very good shot. State champion. Yeah, that would be pretty good. Go ahead. You should talk.
No, do your thing. Continue. You're back. We're a generator. They have their little thing. There's a thing.
Yeah, they basically shit on Thomas Jane and tell him to back off. They open up the door. The Shermanator's about to go out, and just as he's about to run out, a bunch of tentacles show up, and they're all like, "What the fuck?" Because like nobody was expecting tentacles, including me when I saw it for the first time. I was like, "Whoa, fucking gross!" And then like a bunch more come in, and then a big ass one comes in. It's like it just doesn't stop.
Took him a couple chops.
And like I remember my imagination going wild, being like, what could this be attached to, and like how big is it, and are all these tentacles attached to one creature, or is this like multiple creatures?
Oh, true. Okay, yeah.
later on, you discover that it is one giant monster. Or
that looks like a Cloverfield
implied
monster.
Yeah, and I'll say that moment is probably the most unnerving because they're like driving on this like big highway and they stop.
You can't see shit.
They feel, and then you see it, and then you see that it's covered in these tentacles like all around its whole body. It almost looks like an amoeba or something. And you can see these tentacles hanging underneath its torso, and then you can see things flying. And on this watch, I was watching it in 4K, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Those little things flying around, I thought were like the bugs at first. They're the big pterodactyls that like come in later.
I'm extremely frustrated because I could only find it in 720 in a pinch, and at least I was watching it time appropriately. Like I felt like I was watching it in 2007. But this is going to be a movie I'm going to have to go back and watch the 4K version of because it looks like shit in 720p. Honestly.
You know what's going to happen? We're going to blow up, and then they're going to send us the
Thomas
4K
Jane edition.
No, Frank Darabont's going to focus on the fact that I clearly pirated it, and he's going to slap a lawsuit on me for stealing his movie.
He's going to make you walk the plank. So anyway, those little things that look like birds are the big pterodactyl things that attack, and it gives you like even more sense of scale. Like it already is huge, and then you realize that those are actually big ass pterodactyls. You're like, wow, that thing is actually the size of a mountain, and it's just walking across. And it doesn't even like, you think that it's like, oh, this is going to be the part where they have to like speed chase away, and it's going to be a crazy car chase, and this will be the end of the movie. It's like, no, it just walks by. And it's like far more unnerving than if a boss battle broke out or whatever, right? And anyway, that's near the end. We shouldn't have jumped so far, but I was just trying to connect the tentacles to that.
Here, I need you to move further into the plot, I think. So let's. How about you just explain a bunch of stuff and we'll be quiet for a second because we're not very far into this movie.
Yeah, that's fine. So. After the first attack, people don't believe what's going on. They try and convince Brent Norton. He thinks they're trying to trick him or play a game on him, basically, which we've already kind of gone over. And, the religious woman starts to preach in front of people, and it gets a little bit out of control and hectic. And there is almost an allyship between Brent and David, but it's been severed at that point. And as much as David is trying to reestablish it, being like, listen, we came in here together, we should leave in here together. He doesn't say it in those exact words, but you can tell that that's what he's trying to get at. Brent is like, no, fuck you. You don't like me. I thought you were being nice to me today, but you're actually just being the same dick that I have known for the last few years. And he decides that he's going to leave with a bunch of people that he's convinced to leave with him. And they do. But, this is the point where Dan, the guy who's like, there's something in the mist. It's like, is there a gun in the store? And she has the gun. And Ollie's like, I'm a state champion shooter. And, like, everyone's like, all right, Ollie, holy fuck. And they start to create these little tribes within the store. And it's like, it happens almost immediately after the first monster attack of the tentacles. The tribes have already started to form, and there are some shifting of the tribes throughout the movie, but if you kind of pay attention closely, those initial tribes are almost solidified from the beginning with a couple of few migrations here and there, but the bulk of them stay the same. And Brent Norton takes a group of people out, not after an old man's like, I got a shotgun in my
pure
truck.
Chaos. Yeah.
And so they're about to leave, and David tries to convince Brent Norton to stay. He's like, how can I convince you? And he's like, you can't convince me, I'm leaving. And he's like, what if you're wrong? And he's like, well, then I guess the joke will be on me after all. And he leaves with a bunch of people.
I forget if you mentioned, though, that, like, for some reason he even sees the tentacle, and he's still like, I don't believe you.
He never sees the tentacle.
He doesn't see. Okay, well, everybody else sees the tentacle, and he's still like.
Only the store manager goes back with the rest of them.
Okay.
The people who've already seen it, they poke it. It goes like, it flops around like a fish, and then it melts into like ooze.
Okay.
And it's sort of inferred that other people went back and looked at it afterwards, because he even says at one point, like, you can throw as much cow's blood around back there as you want, but it's not going to fool me, and I'm not going to be tricked by it, and it's stupid, and you're all dumb, and I'm leaving. And you're like, all right. And he's like, who do you think you are, William Wonka?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a Holtism. I'm like, that. Did he say that? 'Cause I would believe it. Because he gets very Holty.
Instrument in the office. Who do you think you are, William Wonka? Yeah, and then he leaves. But there's like some Ron Perlman stunt double looking guy.
Yeah,
like...
I wrote him down as the biker with one line. He has two lines.
He has a couple lines, but yeah, he's he turns to the religious woman at one point, and he's like, I believe in God too. I just don't think he's the shitty, vengeful one that you believe.
Exactly. That's like that one. That's when I wrote down the biker with one line has the greatest line.
And he does the old like Crocodile Dundee, like they try and give him a knife, and he like pulls out his own knife, and it's fucking.
Pull out a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a knife.
And they let him tie the rope around him because they try and get Norton to do it. He's like, no, and then he's like, I'll do it. And it's like, you're leaving too? He's like, no, but I do think that we could use that shotgun that you got in your truck. So he's going to go get the shotgun from the truck. And this is probably like one of the most tense moments in the movie, where he follows out Norton and his friends, or not friends, but his like people that he's convinced to join him. And they go out in the mist, and he follows them. And, it's the typical sort of like Jaws style, like the slack rope is being pulled out slowly, and then and everyone's getting rope burn, and they're trying to stop it, but then the rope goes like way up, and you're like, he's being lifted so high into the air. Like,
they didn't even curl it around anything. Like, you gotta like at least put it around one like kind of post.
Also, the rope was basically a twine. I'm surprised they didn't snap it, but they had to do it this way because he comes back as
couple of chicken legs,
and
in
those bottom legs part of a torso.
Great.
Yeah,
it's the bottom part of a torso, and they get pulled in. And I, to this day, I'm like, those legs look great. Like that gag. Like I wouldn't be shocked if they somehow just CGI'd off the top half of a person's body.
I was thinking that because of how realistic it looked. Because you can tell when it's a. Remember that scene in 1408 that you guys didn't catch, but I did, where it's clearly a stunt double just being blasted by water.
What do you mean we didn't catch?
I told you guys.
We both admitted we didn't catch it.
And you didn't. You told me you didn't see it.
We both agreed.
Anyway, it was clearly like a dummy just being blasted by water, and it's just like, wow, guys.
It's like, ooh.
Yeah. That the gag, the visual gag they do in movies where it's like, oh, I'm gonna fall off this building, and then they show clearly like a really bad dummy. That's what it looked like.
But these legs didn't look like that. They look like real ass legs. Like, kind of wish they were a little bit more bloody, because man, he probably just got chomped in half. But maybe it was a clean cut. Who knows?
It looks pretty clean.
Maybe it's clean and hot, so like it's seared.
They got
hot like teeth. Cauterized his fucking intestines.
These mist monsters got hot teeth.
Do you think this is the first time anybody said cauterizes intestines on Twitch?
Probably not.
No, there's a lot of Star Wars games.
Yeah.
Where you just cauterize every cut.
In every Star Wars movie, there's a line that says, I got a bad feeling about these cauterized intestines.
Snakes. I hate snakes. I better cauterize all their intestines.
And after this moment, they pull it back. There's a lot of blood. And we then get another moment with crazy religious woman, Mrs. Carmody, and she says, they're gonna come tonight and someone else will die, and everyone's getting kind of nervous at this point, like, holy fuck. But we've already gone through moments where everyone's telling her to shut the fuck up, and someone slaps her, and she's like, another down payment for the blood of God or whatever, and you're like, shut up. She, like you said, Kaylin, she does an excellent job of making you want to step into the movie and just like grab the fire axe and like kill her. Because she does poison everyone's minds. Like, she literally poisons the entire grocery store's minds against
I was waiting till
anybody who doesn't follow her.
I was waiting till we got to that point, but, like, I guess the next thing really is just the pharmacy, which is just really an action sequence. An action horror sequence.
Well, I did want to talk about the night scene where all the bugs come at night, and, like, how they're all flashing their flashlights out the window, and I'm like, these people are country bumpkins. No, would they not know that bugs are attracted to light? And they're like shining. They're like, get more light at the windows for some reason.
But it's the city people who do it. Thomas Jane does it, and then
Ollie grabs a lantern.
Oh yeah, that's
and
true.
He's like, "Are they bugs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're
clearly
chicken dinner,
giant
like
mosquito
their big
locusts
picnic gets ruined by
with
bugs."
skull faces and like fucking chameleon
I love
eyes.
the way all the
They look
creatures
like they remind me of Skulltulas from the Zelda series.
Yeah,
That's a reference you'll even know, Kaylin, because I think you played Ocarina of Time.
Nope.
For the N64. No,
you never played Ocarina of Time? Holy moly!
Is that the one with the mask?
No, that's the
That's
sequel.
Majora's Mask.
But same era.
Yeah. But they are also in that game.
Yep. They're in every subsequent game after Ocarina of Time.
But yeah, that's like that is the moment in the movie where I'm like, Ollie, what the fuck? Because like Ollie is like the smartest one, and like even his analysis of humankind is like, yep, he's right. Like, you know, like every human beings are fundamentally insane, and like you lock more than two of us in a room together, we start dreaming up ways to kill each other. That's why we invented politics and religion, is so that we can like elect people amongst us that can lead us. So that
that's what I was saying earlier, but you just said it so much more eloquently there. He said the line, and I was like, he's like, people are bad, and they'll fight if you put them in a room, and they want to go with the person that has an answer.
But in that moment, it's kind of clunky and weird, but like in that moment, they all have their input on that statement, and at the end of the day, they all sort of say the same thing, except for what's her name?
Andrea from Walking Dead's character. She's the one that
Laurie.
literally has a weird, almost it almost felt improvised, where she's like,
perpetual
"No, people,
cocked eyebrow. That's her.
people aren't
style.
people aren't like that."
Yeah, she says people are inherently good, and like Thomas Jane is like, no, like people are good when you have your creature comforts, but as soon as you take away the lighting and the food and all that stuff, like then what happens? Like people are more willing to start murdering each other for no reason.
Yep.
And,
like immediately.
You know,
like
it
almost
is like
immediately. Look at the pandemic. Look at Trump era United States that we're still kind of living in. I know we're Canadians, but like there's that trickle over. I saw a "fuck Trudeau" sign and a Canadian flag on a pickup truck today, and I was like, ugh.
Then even Jeffrey DeMunn's character, I think it's Dan, I can't remember, but the guy was like, something in the mist. Like he says,
I'm not Jeffrey Tambor, but I do a really good impression.
He says like if you scare people enough,
Pop-Pop's horny.
They'll be willing to do anything. Like they'll be willing to do anything. And then like that's also sort of like like think about January 6th. Like all of those people were pretty scared, and he convinced them to go storm the Capitol, and they all did it. If you believe that happened, I guess. I don't know. It seemed like it.
What were they doing with all that toilet paper though? Like were they jerking? They thought they were going to jerk off a lot or something?
Yeah, that's what they thought, Caleb. They thought, I'm going to be holed up. I'm going to have to jerk off 40 times a day.
A lot.
I think that they were worried more that they wouldn't be able to wipe their butt
ever again. The hoarding of toilet paper goes so deep that like people probably still have rooms in their house that have toilet paper to the ceiling.
You guys never use a fucking leaf?
I mean, like maybe once in my entire life.
Yes, I have used a leaf. Yes.
I've probably used a couple leaves.
And I'm allergic to a lot of leaves, so it was like a precarious situation where I was like, I rubbed it on my forearm first, like this one maybe. I don't see any rash happening. I think I can maybe use this one.
Incredible.
But wipe fear. It gets exponentially more intense after this moment, because now they've got a guy he tries to do the same thing that Thomas Jane is doing, where he's like fighting with a burning mop, and he tries to light it, and then he trips on a bucket full of gasoline and lights himself
on fire in chaotic fashion.
And it adds like more things to do. You know, your checklist, if it was a video game, you'd be like, you need to find the silver hydrate or coloxide salve or whatever for this guy to die, or he'll die of his burns. You also need to get a comic book for your son. You also need to, like, I feel like Thomas Jane was just collecting side quests, but also was like, we need to figure out how to get out of this mist.
And that's when they decide to go to the pharmacy after this whole chaotic nighttime nightmare. So there's also the subtext happening the whole time too, where throughout the movie, Miss Carmody,
she's tragic comedy. Yeah,
she's basically saying that God is doing this throughout the whole movie, and the first time we really see that she's like, I believe that I'm right, and other people are starting to believe that she's right. I think at this point she has one follower after this, and it's when they look like locusts, and the locusts burst in, and one kills the younger girl. I guess she's probably like 20. But then a locust monster comes right up to Mrs. Carmody and like floats in front of her face and says, "Nah, that woman is disgusting and rotten on the middle," and flies away.
It knew not to stick its stinger in crazy.
Exactly.
Ooh, I don't want to catch that.
But that reinforces Carmody's like cult leader rise, because she has one of the best. Kaylin, I disagree that she has redeeming qualities, but as a villain,
redeeming was the wrong word.
As a villain, she has one of the
her intention.
Her
intentions were that the wrath of God is infinite and will not
terrible.
Stop. Like,
but her
terrible outlook.
Her character arc is one of the most solid in the movies, because she keeps, as a villain, because she keeps saying that this is a sign from God. You'll see tonight they're gonna blast in here and they're gonna fuck everything up. That's all because of human error. That's all just she's
the most consistent character in the entire movie. Like,
and
she's steadfast.
Sticks to her convictions. Yeah, exactly.
This is the first time
when she wanted to offer the kid, though, I'm like, oh no, like how the fuck are you gonna do that?
Yeah, that's messed up. But this is the first time that like something basically biblical happens, right? And her prediction comes true. And then a locust doesn't even, like, she's so, God-fearing and, in line with God.
Well, I mean,
but then that other person sees that happen, and she's got a disciple.
It's not that it's biblical, it's that it's like she's just remaining calm, right? She's like, God will save me. Ooh. And it's not stinging her because she's calm.
No, that's what I'm saying. The reality is that... I know
what you're saying.
Yeah, she stays calm, and also I think it's more realistic that the bug is like, ugh.
This bitch is crazy.
Yeah,
but I'm from the craziest dimension ever. But like and then you look at the other girl who did get stung in the neck, and she like as soon as it goes on her, she's like flailing, like it stings her because she's trying to get it off, but because she stays completely calm, it doesn't do anything, and the person sees her, like you said. And like even as they're going on the glass, she's like, and then locusts came in the night or whatever, and she's like reciting religious literature or whatever.
But she's also like a Bible nerd.
2 or whatever.
Yeah. So she gets up close to one and she's like, "Whoa, this is awesome.
This is sick.
This is dope, cuz." And
then Ollie gets to show off his gun moves. He's clearly the best gun guy. Like he is just clipping creatures like. And he.
So anyway, I started blasting.
Yeah, I started blasting. And then, after all of this calms down, we've got a dead person. Sam Witwer is now like, I've got to, I have to help you guys. Like, I can't not. But they they find him later in the day, and he's like smoking cigarettes, and like, they're like, where are your friends? And he's like, I don't fucking know. But they then decide they got to go to the pharmacy, and he's the only one that volunteers.
That's part of the movie.
That aren't part of that tribe. Like I said, there's like the tribe that survives to the end, and pretty much everybody in that tribe goes to the pharmacy. Short of the people who die there, obviously, like they don't make it. Other than the boy. And
did you guys notice at the end the lady that wanted to leave the market to go check on her 2 kids because the daughter was watching the son or some shit like that?
Carol from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And then she's on the tank at the end?
Yes, we saw it because there's a very long, like 6-second scene. What? You didn't see
it?
I
didn't notice it. I didn't notice
it the first time.
Oh my god. I remember seeing that in theaters and being like, She got out.
Well, you were
Everybody
watching
should've
it in
followed
theaters.
her.
You were watching it. You watched it in theaters, and it stuck with you for time. I watched it on like DVD, like when I was 22, so I was probably wasted. And then I watched it today, like just trying to quickly review a movie for a podcast. Like
probably weren't even watching it.
I was watching it. I watched the whole
probably
movie.
Trying to talk up a lady. Or
You know what stuck with me?
I'm married.
The thing.
No, at the time.
Oh, at the time. No, I remember specifically like torrenting this movie and watching it. Like,
so
I thought you said you watched it on DVD.
I don't know. Probably downloaded DVD, whatever.
No, you can't download a DVD. A DVD is a physical thing.
You can download a DVD. You wouldn't download a car.
No, you can't. I mean,
if you could, if I could 3D print a car, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Those commercials were like, you wouldn't download a car, would you? And it's like, if I could, I would.
If I could, I mean, I'd have 10 cars. I'd have I'd have to buy a garage to hold all of my downloaded cars. You fucking dumb commercial.
That was probably a commercial when this movie came out. Like, you wouldn't download a car.
A few years before that, but yeah, the internet.
Anyway, yes, I did
memes were new when this movie came out.
The first time I watched it, and the second time, and every subsequent time I watched it after that. But the one thing that I noticed only this time was that
what was it?
She says, "Little Macy is at home watching little Ting Tang or whatever, and she's only 8." And I was like. And then at the end, she's like holding 2 kids like they're her kids, and I'm like, that's like a 14-year-old and like an 11-year-old.
Sometimes she forgets that she's supposed to be watching her brother, and
maybe she's watching the older sibling.
The thing that annoyed
her
me,
kids died, and she just found those other.
Just found some rando kids.
Yeah.
That's a real Carol move. Yeah. What annoyed me is that Carol was a really shitty character for a few seasons. And this was like the way this characterization of this character in this movie, played by this actor, was almost exactly the shitty Carol from there. Now, 11 seasons into The Walking Dead, Carol's a badass. She's kind of like the leader, I think, now. I don't know. I haven't seen 5 seasons of the fucking show, but I digress. Carol sucked at the beginning of The Walking Dead.
Well, that's probably why.
What did she suck?
Frank Darabont decided to cast her as Carol because
she didn't suck anything because her husband had recently died. Rest in peace.
And in the comic book, he was a horrible wife-beating piece of shit.
And he was in the show too. Actually, he's alive at the when they first meet, and I think he dies in spectacular fashion. When they're in that like ravine kind of area, and I think they still have an RV.
Also, I think in the comic she had like 2 twin boys and not a single girl.
Yeah.
And those twin boys, like one of them ends up murdering the other one, and he's like, "I just wanted to see if he would come back."
Yeah,
something crazy.
I read the comics up until where they are pretty much now, and yeah.
I was one of those nerds that read the comic books for years before the show even got announced, and I was like, "They're making it into a show."
And then you were like, "That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong."
I was like that. Yeah. I was like that. I liked the show though. I was like, but it's not the comic. The comic is so much better.
It's so much better. It's so much more brutal. Is Dragon Ball that much different from the anime to the Shonen Jump comics?
I meant the live-action movie that sucked shit.
That's not canonically Dragon Ball. That's somebody was like,
but it's a comic that got turned into a movie.
I'm gonna show that weird-looking guy from Shameless and put a weird Goku hairstyle on him. Who plays Bulma? Anyway, we're getting off track.
Who plays bullshit? You guys right now.
Oh wait, isn't Bulma?
Isn't the girl from Shameless?
Is the girl from Shameless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But we digress. Steve, keep us going.
Steve, take us home because it's fucking. It's
no,
5
don't take us home. We're not done yet.
I know, but it's 5 to 11. Whatever.
Let him do his thing then.
Do your thing. I'm sorry.
This is what the people want.
Okay,
we got viewers. We got people coming in and taking a look. Let's keep going.
They go to the pharmacy.
It's episode 50. It's our episode 50 spectacular, where I interrupt Steve as much as humanly possible, while also telling him to hurry it up.
Yeah, hurry up, Steve. But first, let me just talk
who played Bulma
about fucking Dragon Ball Z, the live-action movie.
I mean, to his defense, I brought that up, but
all right, fine then. Fuck you then, instead of him. They go to the pharmacy, and this is where the creepiest creepy crawler of all crawlers show up. The skeleton spiders with human teeth. Like what? Yeah. I couldn't stop looking for the teeth once I noticed they had like it looks like almost like a human skull, right? And they're like pulled back. It almost looks like a twisted metal character or something, where the gums are pulled
the skin
all the way
ripped
back.
off or whatever. Yeah,
and like the teeth are like.
But they also have like
like
chameleon eyes that are going all like over.
No,
the place.
those are the little locusts. Like the spiders had like weird sunken. Yeah, it was. But then like at the end, you realize that those things can grow up to the size of like a minivan. Like they're the ones that are coming out of the guy's face are little skinny guys, but like the ones that are attacking them must be like how fast do they grow?
Teenagers.
Right? Can I talk about?
Must be teens. Yeah.
Can I talk about the things I love about the pharmacy sequence because it's my favorite part of the movie?
Can we tell you to hurry up?
Yep. Hey, I love how a guy is like still half alive and he grabs out and he's all cocooned up and then his like chest starts to explode into like the tiny little ant versions, but then he falls off the wall in the commotion and like literally just explodes.
Yeah, it's like a water balloon goes off in his back. Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know if you've ever like accidentally been near a spider's nest and hit it and it popped open and millions of spiders go everywhere.
I have a crazy spider.
And how?
I would love to hear your crazy spider story.
So
aside spider story.
I lived in like an old house in Brampton, like one of
hurry
those,
up,
older ones, and a lot of spiders in that house. And I, to the point that I'm now okay with spiders. Like I had a spider on my toothbrush once. I went to go brush my teeth, and like I went to go put the toothpaste on, and like a spider was like, meh! And I was like, "Why are you in the bristles? What the fuck?"
Did you get a new toothbrush?
Oh yeah. I used to buy like the 5-pack, so I just threw that one and I was like, new one. And then there was 2 spiders, and I was like, "What? How'd you get in that pack?" But I was at my computer once, and we had one of those like ceiling lights that had one of those like kind of open dome things cover, like
I can still hear you.
Light fixture or whatever. And I don't remember what I was doing on the computer, but I remember like a little tiny, like a millimeter sized spider like came down on a web in front of the screen. I was like, holy shit. And I grabbed it by the web and I like put it in my hand and looked at it, and then I looked up and there was 2, and then there was a 3rd one, and I looked up and the entire light fixture just had like hundreds of them coming down, and I was like, and they all started landing on me, and I was like, and I immediately got up and I ran to the bathroom and I got off all of my clothes and I went into the shower and was just like,
no, the spiders.
And like that was the moment that I was no longer afraid of spiders, because I had been covered in little tiny spiders.
The reason why I brought it up in the first place is because I lived in like a rural area growing up, and we had this like, we like cleared out a bunch of brush in this backyard area, and they piled all the brush in like a pile, like a huge, like, you know, I was like a 4-foot tall kid, and this thing was like 7 feet tall of just brush. And I used to climb to the top of it all the time. It's just like a fun thing to do because you live in the fucking woods. And I remember I was sitting there in this like,
sounds fun to me,
this kingdom of brush, of like fern and fir tree, and I looked down and there's just this fist-sized fucking spider's nest, and it just went like, it almost like opened like a hand.
Aliens,
and it just
like...
yeah.
When
you're small, your memories remember differently, right? So like obviously it was probably the size of it was probably like an inch across.
But to you it was like the size of a volleyball.
Yeah,
like,
and that's how I got my spider powers.
Spider hero.
Spider hero.
Spider powers.
Spider hero.
Yeah.
So
that's how I got my
name
spider
came
killing
from?
powers. I drowned them.
No, my spider heroics come from the fact that I always, if I find a spider inside, I take it outside. I save spiders. But the other thing that I love about this scene is how it's established that their webs are acid
Webs,
somehow. They can make these like, you know, intricate cocoons, but at the same time they shoot their webs off, and if a dude gets his leg degloved in this scene, which you don't see a degloving in movies very often, and this dude's skin, like, it just wraps around his leg, and they pull him, and it just takes, So if you don't know what degloving is, don't Google it.
I don't know what it is. Can you tell me?
It's just when your skin gets, like, you get skinned, basically. They rip your skin off.
Yeah. My
My
wife is supposed to be asleep, and she's like brushing her teeth, and she just heard me say that, and that's a term we're not allowed to use in this house.
Did she
And I
gag?
heard her go, from upstairs.
Hi, Madison.
Kaylin says hi.
Yeah.
Hi,
I
Kaylin.
like the scene because it is like, it's like a classic Aliens scene. You know, like they go into a spooky place and they have a goal. They accomplish the goal, but at the end of the goal being accomplished, they've got to now escape. It does feel very video gamey to me. Like I was saying before, like before they go to the pharmacy, Thomas Jane picks up a bunch of side quests. You know, like as soon as he goes in, he grabs that comic book, like, and it's a Hellboy comic, by the way. Hellboy, great comic.
Nice.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Puts it in his back
Shout
pocket.
out. I didn't notice that either.
And like in my brain, I was like, I pictured like a little like accomplished. You got the comic book. Bring it back to your kid.
Like in The
The
Walking
one thing
Dead.
that sucks about that is that you never see him give the comic book to his kid.
The Walking Dead adventure games, that would be like a side quest.
Yeah, exactly. And the popping of the MP, but also it now gives you the next story element that pushes the story a little bit further, right? Like probably the element that kicks things into gear towards the end, which is the MP starts apologizing, and they're like, what? And they're trying to free him, and then while they're trying to free him, he starts saying it's our fault, it was all our fault. And then they're like, we can't get him down, and then he falls off the wall and pops. And you get your old lady badass scene where she hairsprays a bunch of like.
And it's funny too because it's bug spray called like Bug Smash,
Right,
but she
yeah.
uses it with the lighter.
Flame? Yeah.
Yeah, and then afterwards she goes, nice frisbee flamer, and like throws a flaming frisbee at
That's inappropriate.
Yeah, I'm alright. I've done more things than
If
you
you've-
could possibly imagine.
If
Caleb.
you've put upwards of 100 dicks in your mouth, you're allowed to say certain words.
Yeah. Wait, are you calling me a whore?
Well, have you or have you not had over 100 dicks in your mouth?
I'm not sure. One,
I don't think.
two, 2.5.
What's wrong with liking sexual endeavors?
Nothing.
Nothing. You're the one that said it's inappropriate.
Oh, well,
As you
no,
changed into a different tank top.
A sexier tank top and put on your sexy hat.
I was trying to control my hair. The green screen, it like does this weird thing.
If I was going to cast us as the Trailer Park Boys, unfortunately Steve would be Bubbles, and I would be, unfortunately, Ricky, so...
Bubbles? What the fuck?
Well, I mean,
Alright.
it kind of...
Oh,
Because
man,
he would be sexy. And...
You're definitely more of a Bubbles than me. Okay.
Am I Bubbles? Oh my god, I'm Bubbles, aren't I?
Yeah. You
Can I
love
be
cats,
Bubbles?
you
I'll be
weirdo.
Bubbles.
Okay, so in this
Guys,
Trailer Park Boys
I
recast, we're all
have
Bubbles.
Never watched Trailer Boys. I don't know about it.
You're not from here.
You don't
You're
even
not
go
from
here.
Go away.
You don't even go here, eh? You don't even pronounce it car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta elongate your R's when you say stuff.
Yeah, we were raised by pirate
I'm gonna
people.
go park my car in the car park.
Or park my car in the car
Are
park down by
we
the
going
park.
to the...
You just said nothing that actually. You're like, we're going to the place that we go to. Shit. Okay, so anyway, this is where William Sadler becomes crazy because he sees shit that he shouldn't have seen and witnesses things that are terrifying. He goes to the pharmacy with them, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he
he's
witnesses
like,
the whole
like,
room
"Let me
of
out of here."
nightmares.
Yeah,
And-
and he
and-
starts screaming. Yeah.
After all that happens, this is one of my favorite pivotal parts of the movie where Thomas Jane just wakes up and Andrea from The Walking Dead is like, yeah, you just kind of walked back here and passed out. And he's like, how long has it been? And she's like, it's been a day.
Yeah, like a whole day almost. Yeah.
And then, but it's not a juxtaposition, but it's more of like he kind of gets caught up on the situation, and Mrs. Cromity's coven has become a full cult. Like, it's like you were saying about tribes, it's like 50-50 now. Like, half the people have gone full, like,
Well,
they're
yeah,
just
it's exactly
listening.
what Thomas Jane was predicting.
Yeah.
It was like, she's got 4 people now, and like in a day, she's gonna have like a whole.
And finally, I can talk about like what I wanted to talk about earlier, where like relating to like the Trump era and like anti-science and anti-mask and anti-vax.
Antifa.
And nope,
Just kidding.
nope.
Just kidding.
It
Just
went
joking.
with the
Pro-Tifa.
wordplay. It went with the wordplay.
Pro Tifa, if you will. So the problem is you have a few people who are charismatic enough to be able to convince the people that they're able to talk down to, and convince them to be able to join this cause that is right and just to the person that's talking about their cause, and from a sane, logical person who believes in science and believes in vaccines and believes in masks stop the spread of COVID, and not being a shitty person and not being a weird religious nut. You can clearly see the problem. But if you're indoctrinated and you're brainwashed, you then start indoctrinating and brainwashing people, and that's kind of how the Trump era made it seem like all these people came out of the woodwork. All these insane people finally had a cause that they were able to get behind. They didn't feel marginalized anymore, and they were able to get together and rise up. Now the irony here is they didn't get together and rise up. It's a situation where the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and the loudest voice is heard the hardest, or whatever the saying is.
And the tree in the woods is not heard unless there's anyone there to clap their hands.
Exactly. My point is...
And I don't have any toilet paper to wipe my butt.
Yeah. You got a dirty butt now. You got a dirty butt because old Miss Kerman. And I really like how this movie kind of shows the progression of everybody being nice and everybody being a little at odds, and then people splitting off into groups, and this is this happened before our very eyes during COVID, and like Steve, you said, I'm sure it's happened many times throughout history,
Yeah,
we just it's not immediately.
I think the difference is in history we've always been able to, as individual countries and stuff, focus on a singular enemy. Yeah. Whereas something like COVID is not an enemy, it's like an invisible enemy that exists all around us, and it ended up dividing people in half because...
That's because it makes anyone else the enemy. Because the enemy could be anyone when it's a virus.
But it's also the same thing. In Canada, it's a little bit different because we have a multi-party system where people actually support 5 or 6 different political parties. But in the United States, it's one or the other, and if you're one or the other, you are... against the other one. You're not allowed to be friends with somebody who supports the other party. It's wild. Yeah. It's like they've been fighting a civil war since the Civil War happened, and it still goes to this day.
Let us know in the chat if you're a right wing or a left wing, and that's literally all you're allowed to be.
No.
Nothing in between.
Nope. No Green Party for you, brother. No NDP for you, brother.
Let us know in the chat what your guys' utopias are.
And your social security number and who you voted for.
Give me your credit card, the front numbers on your credit card, and the back numbers on your credit card, and I can figure it out from there.
I also think that in a situation like this, which is obviously an extreme fantasy situation, this is probably how people would act. And you look at it and it seems cartoonish, but then you think about it and you look at what's happening now,
especially right
reality,
now. Yeah.
You can easily see someone like the William Sadler's character, who is trying to stay in their camp, and he stays in their camp for the longest out of everybody, and then he gets turned literally overnight, because Thomas Jane falls asleep, and then when he wakes up, William Sadler is like, expiation.
Yeah, I think Ollie, it's Ollie or somebody says his brain just broke. He was just snapped, and his brain is broken now.
I like the Sesame Street call.
Today's word is expiation or whatever. Or expiation.
Expiation?
Expiation. It's a religious word that basically means atonement, which is also kind of a religious word, but yeah. It's them they have to do something in order to atone for their sin.
Clean yourself.
Of sin.
Clean yourself of sin.
And you know how you do that? You go find Sam Witwer.
Well, you know how you do that? You have to be sinful first. So
according to the Bible, you are that once you're born, because everybody has original sin.
Original sin. You touched the vagina, so you're the devil.
And because I know about life and shit. That's what the sin is. If we didn't know about life, we were just living. You'd basically be immortal because you don't know otherwise, right?
Well, I mean, you're not going to be immortal because you're going to,
No, you're not literally going to be, but in your mind.
No, I know what you mean. If you didn't know death existed, then you wouldn't know that death was coming, and you would never fear death, so you would be able to live your life as though death didn't exist.
Steven, how do you have this magical way of making both myself and Jason sound a lot better than what we say?
Me?
Well, it's because
you said something that you said.
Well, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm understanding what you're saying, and then I'm like, I think I know what he means. He means this. I'm not. It's like I'm vetting what you're saying. I'm not gonna.
Shit! My shit died.
Well, you sound way better now, though.
So what you're saying is I communicated well.
You communicated exactly what you needed to me, and then I just sort of re-said what you said, but in a way that I thought was more artistic. I'm like Thomas Jane. I'm an artist. I'm
an artist.
Pictures.
I do little picture paintings of Stephen King. Nope, not Stephen King. I paint other movie posters.
I just draw Stephen's kinks, and I'll send them to you guys for money if you want them.
Specifically Pan's Labyrinth, It, and The Thing. The Thing like a penis.
The Think.
The Think.
That's what I call it. It's a penis, and it has a giant brain.
I don't want to rain on everybody's parade, but it is
I know,
it is quarter after.
We keep getting derailed, so we're pretty close to the end.
It's our episode 50 spectacular.
Spectacular. So, at this point, we realize now that the majority of the grocery store is following Crazy Lady, and they can't find the rest of the military guys. They find Sam Witwer. He's smoking cigarettes. They're like, where are your friends? He says, I don't know. And they go back to the loading dock. It's the only place they haven't checked, and those two guys have hanged themselves. Yeah. And we then realize, these guys feel very guilty about something, and that's when Sam starts to basically say, like, I don't know what was going on up there, but I know that Project Arrowhead was something, and that they were looking into something up there, and it's our fault. We did it, but it wasn't me. And then fucking William Sadler shows up. He's like, "We got you now, you motherfucker!" And he throws him out into the crowd. And this is when the movie takes a real hard turn for people were working together, and they were at least the different tribes were working together for the betterment of everybody inside of the grocery store. But now they've turned on Sam Witwer in particular. Mm-hmm. And they force him to his knees. They get him to admit what he did, but he is basically just telling them what happened without admitting that he did it, and they won't take that for an answer. They make him admit it, and he never does, but they eventually start ragdolling him around between the entire crowd. Everybody's getting more and more frothy at the mouth before the butcher of the store, who's still wearing his full smock. You're like,
I've been butchering for days.
Like, I know it's been days in here, and I'm still wearing my fucking smock. And he stabs him multiple times. They lift him up. The religious woman says, sacrifice him to the beast. Though there is a moment in there where she, like, grabs her mouth like she's shocked at what's happening, and, like, oh my God, I can't believe we're killing this guy. But then she like, quickly tosses that emotion aside.
They're
and is
following
like,
me.
no, we got to do this. We got to throw this guy out to the beast.
Yeah.
And they do. And I'd say it's probably it's not like the best moment in the movie. It's not even the most emotional moment in the movie, but it is powerful to me. Like him begging, and like everything goes extremely quiet. And I didn't have my headphones on when I was watching this. I was just watching it on my regular speakers, but it was like late at night, so I had it low. And I didn't even really hear what he said, but I just heard him being like, please. He's like, please help me. And he just gets yanked away into the mist.
Well, this movie had some... I was watching it with subtitles, and it had some stuff that wasn't even like... it didn't even say like inaudible, like sometimes it does with subtitles. It just, the subtitles went away, and it was... There was one particular scene
There's
where...
There's a lot of whispery parts in this movie.
Thomas Jane was talking to his son, and it was just kind of like... the kind of banter you would see extras have in the background, but you could hear them talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying, obviously, but it just, there's no subtitle for it.
It was basically them just being like, he's like, I miss Mom, and he's like, Mom loves you more than anyone on the planet Earth, and we will find her, like that kind of stuff.
Or will they?
Which is basically the conversation that he has with his son the entire time. It's like, he just went, I want Mommy, or whatever. But this is the moment that then, spurs them to leave the store. and they sacrifice him, and she does the thing. It's like, the beast will leave us alone tonight, but tomorrow, well, I guess tomorrow we'll just have to see. And you're like, oh, fuck you, lady.
Yeah, I thought you were a psychic. You had one good call.
I thought you were God's sidekick.
God kick. God kick.
They, I guess, set their alarms, or like, I don't know, someone stays awake. I don't know how they really coordinate it, but they decide they're going to leave at sunrise. I don't know. But Ollie packs a bunch of groceries, puts them by Till 2, and they are going to leave together. And when they get to the till is empty. There's no food there. And you can see she's like waiting with a knife, being like, "You stealing food now, are we?" And it's like, none of this food belongs to any of us, you psychopath.
Yeah.
But she basically says, like, you're not going to leave, I won't allow it. And she's now basically solidified her position as like, I am the king of the grocery store, and I am the vessel in which God talks to us, and you all have to agree to that. And if you don't, then I'm going to kill you all. And she says that without actually saying that, but everybody around her starts to kind of like zero in, and everyone's clearly focusing in on the group. And like, it's nice to see that like that other grease monkey guy is like still with them, even though
was he the guy from Napoleon Dynamite?
I doubt it. His name is Myron in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, because he seemed almost like the dumber of the two of them, and you would think that he would be the one that would leave first, but like he's like, no, I'm gonna stick with you guys. You guys seem like you have solid heads on your shoulders. And he even has like has like a wrench, and at another point he grabs a can of peas, because remember when the old lady like throws the peas at at Lady Comedy? It's kind of funny, but at the same time it's like, the scariest scene I think in the movie is when she starts to be like, you're not leaving, expiation. And she then says like, we want the boy. And that's when you're like, whoa, hold on, lady. Because as soon as she says that, like, what do you think she wants the boy for, right?
Yeah.
She wants to sacrifice
give it to the monster to feed.
Monster, yeah. She's
to
thinking,
leave us alone for
she's
one
thinking
more day.
Cain and Abel shit. Like, they'll give the monster the boy, and then we'll be left alone for like 2 weeks maybe. But it gets in more and more intense, and then Ollie fucking shoots her through the milk jug.
My man.
Click clacks her real hard. Shoots her and then shoots her again. And then as Thomas Jane's like, thank you, he just says, I killed her. And it's really like, my heart sank for that little realization. What have I
it's
done?
Also like, it's one of those movie deaths that is so satisfying.
It's very cathartic,
Yeah.
that's true, but for Ollie, he's killed these space pterodactyls, and he's been the action hero. If there was more if there was more Ollie stuff, he would probably be like a Dwight Schrute style nerd, where he's got a bunch of nerd stuff that he does, and he's probably very like, it's kind of like a weirdo at work. They kind of treat him like that. They treat him like the nerd.
I would love to see the version of The Office where the mist rolls in on the office.
They kind of do that. Well, they don't do that, but they have a moment where Dwight and Jim are having a parlay back and forth about what happened in like a zombie situation, and basically Meredith would do really well. But Jim keeps being like, "Oh, could you survive 10 days? What about 11 days?"
Yeah,
and it cuts forward like, "What about 300 days?"
No problem.
No problem.
Like, but then he starts to get nervous. Like,
Yeah.
The longer the day goes, yeah. But when he shoots her in the head, you can see that he's not happy with himself. He's not like, check please, or like clean up on aisle 4. He doesn't like do like an action line. He's like, I killed her. And everyone's like, yes, all you did, but we gotta get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And right after that, there's that one woman who like comes out of an aisle and she's like, You murdered
You
her.
murdered
You
her.
murdered her. But I did, like, when they get to the car eventually, because they go out into the car, or towards the car.
Well, there's a
and,
few
like,
people with them.
Yes,
They
there's
get
the
sacrificed.
manager, which, you know, you wouldn't expect the manager character to be with them at the end. You would think that he would be one of the ones that would have kind of, like, melted into the cult, but he's clearly like, no. This is all bullshit. These people are insane. I don't believe in God. And there's the old man with the shotgun. He goes out with them. And there is one other person. I can't remember who it is. Ollie's there, obviously, but, like...
There's an old lady.
Well, there's the old lady,
The
the
old
man,
lady, Dale from The Walking Dead.
which they stick with
Andrea
Thomas Jane
and the
Andrea
kid
and
and
the
Thomas
kid,
Jane are the make it to the car.
And
Oh, there's
Ollie and
there's like
three
the
other
guy.
guys.
There's like that guy. There's like a guy.
Willem.
Oh, right. It's the other shopping man, the other
Yeah.
shopping attendant man.
I think he's the guy at one point who just like sitting there being like, "What the fuck?" Like earlier in the movie.
There is a guy that is throughout the entire movie. He's like, he'll lean in while they're talking and be like, but he doesn't say anything the whole movie.
I'm the background guy.
Yeah, but it like sometimes focuses on his face and he's like, but he's there always, but he never says anything. And
He
he's
must
just
have had
kinda
a good agent.
Yeah, a good face agent. It's like, listen, you got a good. Oh my god,
You got a
mist
good
is happening
background
face.
face.
Yeah.
We need you for this one. You
But
can
you're gonna be in the
utter
foreground for a couple of these shots.
Do you know
can
how many
get the
days
same
that is?
you can utter a line. It probably won't get picked up. It's probably gonna make it to the cutting room floor, but you're gonna
There
be
is
in
one
every
guy-
shot.
You know the guy that gets webbed in the face in the pharmacy? That guy.
That guy has like a line, right?
He has, I think, like one utterance of a line, but he also the entire movie is just like again like leaning on the counters and stuff like, and they always focus on him, and then like in the 4K, I was like, this guy's got an interesting face, and then
Yeah.
in the pharmacy, he's like,
We have to
my
spend-
interesting face.
We have to spend some more money. Web technology in movies has not evolved yet, and it's basically taking up all of the budget. Those scenes of like the web falling to the floor, I was like,
Yeah.
they spent so much money on that. Just
Like, how
They took
would
all
a
this-
web fall?
and they somehow probably used like web from the 2001 Spider-Man movie. They would like take it, make it less silver, and make it fall to the floor, and that's
Yeah, Frank
$13
Darabont was
million dollars.
Hello, Sam Raimi. Do you have any like deleted spider web CGI we can use? And Sam Raimi was like, "Yeah, of course I
Of
do.
course
I've got
I
tons
do.
of it.
That's what it's there
I know what
for.
to do with."
Is this Frank Darabont? Let's make a movie together.
Frank,
let's
stop
make,
calling me. Yeah.
Let's make Spider-Man 4. It's like, what are you talking about? There's only 2007. There's only 2 Spider-Mans.
Wait, hold on.
I'm down for some Amazing Spider-Man 3.
I just got
Definitely
word from
want
the
that.
internet that Spider-Man 4, the sequel to the Tobey Maguire movie, is being made.
Well, it's gonna be-
starring Tobey Maguire,
yeah, it's gonna-
directed by Sam Raimi
Yes.
and Frank Darabont.
Oh, my head would explode. But also, I could see that happening. But also, I could see where's our Frank Darabont MCU movie? With Snapcut or whatever it's called.
I don't know. I feel like Frank Darabont is. I mean, he would probably do it. He is like a Sam Raimi. Like he does have.
They
a
brought
particular
Sam
style.
Raimi out of basically retirement to make a Spider-Man movie. Or, no, not even a Spider-Man movie. A Doctor Strange movie.
Well, Doctor Strange is Sam Raimi's favorite superhero.
Yeah, and also it's just... Multiverse of Madness is just Evil Dead 4. But he uses so many of the same shots. It'll madden your multiverse.
It'll send
You know what
into
they
the
say when we start
multiverse
getting
of
off topic.
madness. Yeah. Anyway, so we were in the mist now. I love the mist, but the mist takes our best friend Ollie and it cuts him in half.
Is that the part that you thought he was dumb about?
No, I thought it was when they're all shining the light out the windows.
Oh, right,
and
right.
he like puts a flashlight. I'm like, Ollie, you live in this. You know that moths to the flame are dangerous.
Yeah.
What are you doing? that is the biggest, like, what the fuck are you doing, dum-dums? Like,
well, there's
as soon as one of them hits, it's like, turn every light off. That's what I would yell, turn all lights off now.
They also literally do a moth to the flame situation that backfires earlier that we were talking about, you know, like when they're just trying to light that gas mop on fire.
And the guy trips, and he creates the side quest.
Classic.
Like, I'm so burned, I'm gonna die.
Classic self-immolation.
The fact that he was like, just kill me. Like, he was like, shoot me in the head because I'm in such pain. And they're like, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna make sure we're gonna
go to the pharmacy and get you this hilarious bottle of fucking OxyContin.
But that lady kills her. She takes the pills to kill herself. She could have gave those pills to that guy to kill himself, and he would have died peacefully because he would have just fallen asleep and died. But she did it herself. What a selfish.
That's because people are selfish. That's what the movie is teaching us. When people fear makes people selfish and only think about themselves and their either survival or wants.
Truth.
You're right, and that's like exactly that's the point of that whole, because they pair it with that, right? Like, they realize they need to save this guy. This woman kills herself with painkillers. This guy's literally in pain and asking to die, and she's just like, don't tell anyone I have these, kid. And like, she dies next to the kid. Like, she's taking care of the kid.
Oh, was that
Billy.
Ripley?
It was Ellen Rippler.
Rippler. She had a Tripler. She had some name that I was like, is she gonna? I've seen this movie.
It's not the old woman. That
no. The one that's taking care of Bill for like most of the movie. Big Bill is what he keeps calling his kid.
Named Reppler.
Reppler.
Yeah. But like, that woman, I don't even think she has him. She's just like, I'll take care of him. I'm a local real estate agent. Or whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was like Reppler and Tundalo.
Reppler and Tumbler. Yeah, she's like, my name's Broomhilda Tumbler, and I love painkillers.
I mean, who doesn't in this day and age? Anyway, let's. Is that the end of the movie?
Almost. We lose Ollie. He drops the gun on the hood. They are still being attacked. All of their friends. Even Thomas Jane is like wailing on the horn, and we're all grabbing her hair, being like, "Stop doing that!" Like, all the spiders are gonna know where you are. And none of them get there. They're all in the car, and they're still like, because they can hear them being like, "Oh God, where is everyone?" And they all one by one get murdered. I really wanted that like old man who's like, ding, 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 I got a shotgun in my car. I wanted that guy to live, but you know, he didn't really do much throughout the movie, so I guess he had to
just
die.
Talked about how he had a shotgun in his truck, and everybody's like, we cannot go to that. The gas may be poison.
Yeah. And
also, we're getting close to spoilers, folks, so if you haven't been, and
if you haven't watched, there are things in the mist, but we're not going to tell you the worst part of the stuff that happens.
You're right, Kaylin. Yeah. Actually, spoiler warning here is a good, because this doesn't really have an M. Night Shyamalan twist, but it does have a fucked up ending.
Yeah.
I loved it. It felt so appropriate. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, it felt deserved, or like, it didn't feel out of place, to say the least.
Yeah, and they have been talking about it throughout the movie. They're like, we gotta go to the car and drive as far as we can.
Yeah,
and I think he even says he has like a full tank of gas.
We only know what we know because we've seen the very, very end scene of the movie. But the thing is up until that point, up until the horrible thing happens at the very end, we assume it's the end of days. It's the end times. This is the end of humanity. The fact that, so I guess Steve, just take us home. Spoiler alert. Okay. If you've never seen The Mist,
so
you should have seen The Mist in 2007 like everybody else did.
The kid falls asleep once again, but I can assume as a child this would be an exhausting experience for anyone, and they would probably fall asleep continuously and often. But they go to Thomas Jane's home. David sees that his wife has been webbed up into the corner of that house, the area that he had gone to the store to duct tape closed. Yeah. Which is like super sad. He's like, the reason I went to the store is like the reason that she didn't. Like, if I had that tarp and that duct tape, maybe we could have lived. But she's dead, and he has a little breakdown. And they just drive. They drive forever, and they drive until the car runs out of gas. Not before a giant monster. We already talked about it when like the whale of a creature goes over top of the car, which is like pretty powerful. And
I want to call it a mammoth.
Yeah,
octopus mammoth.
Mammoth is a good describer.
Yeah, it's the size of a mountain, and it just kind of doesn't even bother with them. Just like doesn't even notice them. It's just like, which is better than if it was like and like sniff them or like the tentacles on the car. I'd be like, come on, we already get it. But the fact that it's just like, it's just like walking around, it's way more intense and cool to me. But shortly after that, the car runs out of gas, and I think this is one of the failing moments of the movie, is that you don't really know how much time has passed. It doesn't feel like a lot of time has passed, but how the fuck do you do a montage in that? Maybe make it nighttime.
Well, how far does a tank of gas get you? Like 12 hours?
Probably. We don't know how much gas was in the tank. Like maybe 6 hours.
Yeah.
That's
the only thing is that like I wish that it felt like a long time, because I think that the outcome would be more satisfactory if we knew that it was a very long time, where they realized like we have been inside of this mist forever, and like
and there's no other
doesn't end. Yeah.
There's
no end to the mist.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they would accomplish that without them being like, we've been driving for 15 hours. Like they would have to like say it to each other, and like the whole. Like the power of the end of that movie is that like they don't say anything.
Yeah, you don't need to have anything expository at this point in the movie, because it's already so bleak, and then we enter the scene that it could change you, seeing this, not expecting it.
Well, I mean, I would hope that if the three of us were in a situation where we were in a mist and we escaped a crazy religious woman, and we had to watch one of us kill another human being, and had been attacked by spider monsters that can melt us with their webs, and seen a poor teenager get pulled out into mist and die, that if we had a pistol with 2 bullets in it, that one of us would be able to man up and be like, I'll kill both of you guys and I'll let the mist kill me. And I don't know which one of us that would be, but I feel like it's a pretty heroic thing to do if you think that the alternative is all of us being webbed into a wall and then having our chests explode with spiders, because like that's
while you're still 100% alive and aware.
Yeah. So that's how the movie ends, is they run out of gas, they have 4 bullets in 5 people, and one of them is a child, and obviously that's the first person that he killed, but he shot the other 3 quickly. You don't see it, but it's the exterior of the vehicle. It's inferred. They all look at each other. There's a knowing glance.
Yeah.
They say, we've got 4 bullets, there's 5 of us, and then it just goes into him loading, and then him screaming and crying and trying to kill himself, and he can't.
Which is some crazy Thomas Jane good acting.
Yo, I also have a solution to that, by the way.
You line up their foreheads and you shoot through. If Toby and Hitler and and Stalin, what is it? Toby and Hitler and
I think it's like what's his name? The guy who did 9/11.
I know, Osama bin Laden. You line their heads up and you shoot all 3 of them so it goes through their heads. Is that what you're going to say, Kaylin? Because I actually want to hear what you're going to.
Thanks, Jason.
Fuck. Sorry about it. So you're going to be like you would have to go 2 and 2.
That doesn't guarantee. Like, some people have thick ass skulls.
That's true.
You don't know it's going to work.
You might accidentally brain damage 2 people. Or brain damage.
One person's gonna be there like, kill me. You have to like stop them to death. That's way worse.
That was fucked.
Pretty sure you could do 2. So you do 2 for one, and then you 2 for another one, and then
click yourself.
3, and then you still got one more left. So you shoot that one in the air if you want.
If you wanted to. Well, how would you kill yourself and then shoot a bullet anyway? That's not even the ending of the movie. I think
the point is that
it's so much worse.
He knew that it was a guaranteed kill if he was to shoot them all in the head, and he knew that, like, yeah, maybe sure he could have been like, all right, everybody stand in a line, and I'll see how many of you I can kill with one bullet. But, like, I don't think that was probably not a thought.
It's not an action comedy.
I mean, it's hard to stand in a line when you're in a, what was that, a Jeep Cherokee?
Yeah.
What was that, a bucking Bronco?
It was a Bronco.
What was that,
I'm starting to think that, Jason, if we were in this situation, Kalen would not be the person with the gun.
I would be the person with the gun, and I would...
No. I'm saying that in that situation, we'd be talking about it. Kalen would be like, we're in a Jeep Cherokee, okay? Everybody just lie down in the trunk, and I can do this with one swing of a crowbar. The tire iron can kill you.
We're getting off track again. Steve, that's not even the end of the movie. That's not even the bleakest point of the movie. There's still one more horrible thing that happens.
Yes. So Thomas Jane, after attempting to shoot himself in the head multiple times, in the mouth, and crying, and not ever looking around at what he's just done, but you do, and you don't. It never focuses in on any of them, but they're there, like out of focus in the background and stuff, and it's like so horrifying. He gets out of the Jeep. He yells into the mist for something to come and kill him. And the mist clears. And a large... At first, I remember seeing this like in theaters. I thought it was like a monster running for him. And then it was a massive tank.
It was a tank.
And there's soldiers on the back, and then behind them there are soldiers walking, and it's just the mist starts to clear.
Yeah, so he gets out of the car and is screaming, "Come get me! Just come get me!" And when the tank scene that you said happens, but I'll never. That's one thing I will never forget about this movie, that the mist is clearing with the tank coming through. So that means that he does this thing. This issue was taken care of well before he even did the thing. So it does suck, and it's horrible that that happened, that he did that. But now he's in a predicament where, for the rest of his life, probably going to go to prison, right?
No, he's not going to go to prison. I really doubt he's going to go to prison.
I don't know, man. I think that if you kill 3 people and
euthanasia, can you go to prison for euthanasia?
Yes. You absolutely can.
Guys, no. I think that there would be special circumstances for a mist full of horrifying Lovecraft creatures.
Fair enough.
Like, they would probably be like, all crimes forbidden.
Aside.
It's kind of like when the library reopened and they expunged everyone of their library fees.
That's... What? They did that?
Yeah, the downtown library, they're like, yo, come back. Don't worry about your late fees. We're clearing them all.
Well, how about this one, Kalen? How about when they legalized marijuana in Canada and multiple United States states, and the people in prison for having too much weed on them in a search and siege, still in prison. Still in prison forever.
I like Kalen's. It was funnier.
I thought
mine was too real.
The library card thing was way funnier.
Mine was too real.
It's like when the library reopened and it was like, forget about your library fees. It's okay that you killed your son. The library's open again.
I think we need to take this bad boy home.
We have been, but
I have one more question. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Steven, you mentioned that your order of these movies has shifted slightly. I'd like to hear the new revised order.
For
or not
Stephen's
that there's
Kings.
any kind of specific thing, but just like if you were to.
I think that Dreamcatcher snuck its way down to the bottom.
Okay.
Needful Things probably above that. Secret Window goes to third, yeah, and then 1408, and then still this. This is still the best.
Thumbs number one.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think I would have the same reaction.
It didn't change a lot, but a couple of things shifted around. Yeah, I mean, we also didn't talk about the fact that, like, when he sees the mist, he's calm when, like, he wants the monsters to come for him. And then as soon as the mist clears, he has, like, a different sort of breakdown. Like, he had a breakdown in the car where he's like,
yeah, because he says something along the lines of, like, what was it all for? What did it all, why? What was it all for?
Well, in the car, he's like, I want to die. Like, he just wants to die. And then he goes out and he's like, I want to die. And then when that happens, he's like, what have I done? Like, it changes from and you can, his performance is different. If you watch it, you're like, yeah, now he's, like, actually just like, I want to die for a whole different reason now. Like, he's like retching his soul.
One of them's almost like a fearless kind of want to die kind of thing, and the other one's almost like a fearful, like you said, like the guilt or whatever, right?
Yeah. I can't imagine. It's such a twisted ending that, like, I can't imagine it. I can't.
I like that it wasn't the cookie cutter happy Hollywood ending.
I remember feeling hot. My whole body was hot, and I was, like, having like a heart clench, and I was like, "Holy fuck! Is this how this movie ends?" And then it got even crazier, and I was like, "This movie is terrible."
It's a crazy twist ending, and it's not like a halfway through the movie twist. It's like a series of events that happen in 5 minutes that make it makes your head just be thrown through a loop.
What I meant about, like, the end. It's like it maybe should have been like 20 minutes of them finding, like, a motel, going inside of it, and like having to, like, do stuff while they were outside of the grocery store. But, like, they really did need to expend that amount of time in the grocery store for you to feel the reason for them to believe it.
Yeah, I'll get into that in my outro, but I agree with you.
Well, I mean, we've reached the end of the movie, so I guess we can go into
look at
outros.
us go.
So, Jason, why don't you just go ahead and go straight into your outro then?
So, basically, I give this movie a 4.2 out of 5. It's a high rating for what is essentially a B horror movie, you know, but it's one of the most impactful movies I've ever watched because of what it meant. As I said at the beginning, like, I couldn't go to a party and strike up a movie conversation with people and the mist wasn't brought up. I think that will still happen when, you know, parties are a thing again. But that's something I always remember about this movie. And I give it the 4.2 because I think this movie is like an important piece of filmmaking for the ending that it pulls off without it feeling campy or weird or just trying to just be different or just trying to be sad or just trying to do something that no other movie has done. Also, Thomas Jane's in Dreamcatcher, so I guess that's my gun unsmoked. I just realized
unmisted. You meant unmisted.
I meant unmisted.
Stay on theme here.
At the end of the day, it wasn't hard to give this an over 4 rating out of 5 because it's visually stunning to look at. It's visually interesting to look at. It's got a great story, and, like, the fight, the grocery store fight when the monsters break into the grocery store that leads directly into the, like, video game horror pharmacy sequence is excellent. What I will say, which brought my score from a 4.5 down to a 4.2, is there's a lot of quiet looking around that I think could have been better used. And I agree with you, Steven. They did need to do that to really convey a lot of the emotion that is presented. But the thing is like, I found myself a little bit bored with some of it in an all right, that's enough way. And even in the pharmacy scene, there's a lot of them just, like, looking around, sort of playing off what you were saying earlier about how, like, Thomas Jane's character David is just, like, looking around for quest items. They could have truncated some things, brought down the runtime to something like an hour and 50 instead of, they cut 15 minutes of these sort of, you know. And I think if they remade this movie now, it would have a shorter runtime or a way longer runtime, but it would still be way faster.
It's called The Mist, the TV show.
Yeah.
It's a TV show.
There's a TV show of The Mist?
There is.
I think it got
it's
canceled.
It's not great.
I didn't know that. Anyway, that's pretty much it. 4.2 out of 5. Highly recommend this movie. If you stayed and watched the show here tonight, thank you. And I'm sure you've seen this movie. If you've never seen it, go watch it immediately. We spoiled the ending, but like, you have to see it to really.
We warned them, so maybe it's not spoiled for them.
It's true. If you're watching this on video on demand, thank you. This is episode 50 of fucking Hated to See This One. I'm gonna upload episode 1 very soon. Now that we have an intro.
Should we get a birthday cake?
Well, it's too late.
Okay, guys, come on. You're outroing the show, and we're not even at the outro.
Anyway,
Kaylin,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Final
Kaylin.
thoughts, Kaylin. Go ahead.
So, I watched this movie 3 times, as I'm generally accustomed to do. And on my first viewing, Jason, I do have to kind of agree with you a little bit. Personally, I'm conflicted because I did find myself kind of losing focus or like interest or whatever. Like the acting is superb. The story is great. I don't know what it was, but for some reason I just found myself wanting, like, just kind of not nodding off, but just kind of like, oh, what's this or whatever. I also found myself wanting to see more of what was actually going on. Like, we got like a little snippet. Like, I said to you guys earlier, there could be like a prequel to this movie of like what the fuck happened in the lab or some
called
shit or
Dreamcatcher.
whatever. That was my first viewing, though. My first viewing, it was my first time seeing it, and also I was watching it from my lap or from my computer instead of like comfortably in my bed. I like usually like laying in my bed and putting it on the TV. But yeah, the acting was great. The story was great. For some reason, the execution left me distracted or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. On repeated viewings, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. This series of this month has made me want to read Stephen King's works. I've never read any of them. I've been kind of slowly getting into reading more lately, and this feels like a good next thing to look into as far as some to read. I give it finding that extra bullet you need.
It's pretty good.
All right.
Gonna meet the family.
Well,
Robert De Niro.
I mean, I think I've already said throughout this review that I really like this movie a lot. There's not really a super logical reason as to why I like this movie, but I think that in terms of it encapsulating what I like from a large cast and a tight story. So like I like stories where something horrible is happening on the outside, but within this one area, these people have to work together in order to escape or survive. And within those types of stories, there's always going to be some sort of fracturing. And I liked that the fracturing in this was so clear and so easily identified. Like right almost before the story even begins, you can kind of start to see like this person's different from this person's different from this person, and it's almost like they identify the leaders right away. Mm-hmm. Thomas Jane obviously is going to be a leader because he's the main character, but Brent Norton, he's going to be a leader because he butts heads with Thomas Jane, even though they're very similar people right out of the gate. when they're in the car together, you're like, these guys, they have a bad relationship, but they seem similar, and that's why they're getting along right now, because they're working together and they realize, like, if we can do anything, we can do anything together. And they go into this grocery store, and you start to see other sort of like bobbling heads with other people sort of just blankly around them. And they identify these characters right away. And like, that's the kind of like storytelling that is so interesting. And you would think that something like this would work better in a TV show, because you could spend a lot more time with, I kept saying the word tribe before, but like, it literally is that, where they're like breaking down into these sort of like subsects of groups that are like tribalizing each other, and they're trying to bring each other in, and it's working throughout. And that is good storytelling just inherently. And like, it is not executed perfectly, I will admit, and I know that it can be kind of tedious at times, and it can be very annoying at times when you're watching people that you think should be smart doing something dumb. Is very annoying, especially in a long format like television series, where you're like, this person is so stupid, but I can get over Ollie being dumb in those few moments that he's an idiot. But the fact that he's so good at the beginning, and so good at like his last moments before dying, are him killing that fucking horrible bitch that we all hated the entire time. Like, she sucked and everybody hated her, and we all liked Ollie, and Ollie did the thing that we all in the audience are like, somebody kill her, please, and he did. But at the end of the day, this story is like, it's about humanity in a time of crisis, and it's easy to kind of like slot yourself into any of these, but like, they do vilify certain rules. So if you're like a religious person watching this, you're probably like uncomfortable being like, I would probably follow her. You're like, yeah, well, you shouldn't, because she's crazy. Again, it's hard for me to say exactly why I love this movie, other than that I love Frank Darabont's kind of pacing, and like, I love even though like it's kind of like a dumb thing to like fade to black, like he does it so many times in this movie that I'm like, that is the end of the scene. Like, it's like he's like bowing, being like, and that's how that scene ends. Yeah, I don't. Sorry, my brain is like, what else can I say?
I want to see this black and white version. That's what I mean.
It's not hard to find. You can find it. Sorry, my brain is trying to like be like, what else can I say good about it? But I'm like, it's good. It's like a good movie.
Just a good movie.
The end of the movie is extremely tragic and hard to watch, but it's also, it works, and I think even better than what the novella ends with, which is they just drive off into the mist and like it ends. It's like they go and like the whole world is mist now, and I kind of like that he really fucked up, because his character the entire movie is the guy with the head on his shoulders, and he's moving through and he's making the right decisions the whole time, and he's driven, whereas like all these other characters are falling onto Lady Comedy just being like, you have to bow to God, and they're all doing it. He's like, no, we are all people of action, and then his little group of people are action bound. They're the ones that go to the pharmacy, they're the ones that do setting up the lights, they're the ones that fight back, they're the ones that leave, and they give up at the end, which is kind of anti what they've been doing the whole time. And that's the one part of the movie that I wish kind of felt more extended. Like, it would have been great if it's like they got to like Florida or something, like you saw like a sign for Florida, and they're like, we got all the way to Florida,
actually, that's a good
mist
point.
is still here, like it should have been a sign, because like they don't really hard tell you where they are, and they do pass a sign during that montage, but like if you're not familiar,
they established that earlier in the movie at the beginning, where you see a Portland sign. So it's weird that they didn't have a final, like a destination that they reached at least pass by them.
Or like shown multiple signs or something, you know, like show them passing through a bunch of different areas to like really let you know that they think that they've reached the end. Like they cannot go any further. That's the only problem I have with the end, is that it doesn't feel like that. It feels like they just drove until the gas tank ran out and they're like, well, now we're all dead. Yeah. So like, but I do get it, and I get the end. The end is good, and it should be that way. And it's.
I bet I could quickly get some gas from a gas station.
Yeah,
that's how Kaelin died in the mist. But I will give it an empty vape chamber full of a whole world of mist.
Ooh.
It's actually a metaphor for vaping.
Yeah. But also, you know, the mist is a metaphor for the mist inside of all of us and what kind of monsters lurk there. We all know that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because everybody's a monster on the inside, I guess, is what this movie is trying to tell you. Or at least you could be a monster on the inside.
Well, we did it. For our 50th episode spectacular, we did 3 hours on the mist. So
should we show our butts?
Yeah, show your butts and your boners, everyone. No nipples.
I don't have any nipples on my butt, so
no
I think
nipples.
That's okay. Guys, it's the end of my month. No more Stephen King movies.
No, Stephen King's are dead.
I liked it a lot.
Matricide. So I guess we do the thing where we
right.
Do the thing.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask Kaelin and Jason. Did you guys have you seen this one?
For Kaelin and for Steven and for Kaelin, we're gonna change this. Hey, did you see this one? Actually, combining it's pretty good. For Steven and for Kaelin. Hey, did you see this one?
Ooh, yeah. For Jason and Steven, have you seen this one?
Yeah, we did. We all saw it. We watched it together.
Trust that.
Bye.
This is that part where we can like banter over the things when I'm playing our theme song.
Things are meshing.
I'm actually just gonna play it again immediately because we played 25 minutes. And we're talking over it, so it's like kind of funny.
Are things happening right now? Is there music I'm not hearing?
Yeah, go back and watch the stream. Here, I'm gonna play it one more time. Play it one more time. Hey. There we go. Play it. There we go. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm doing our post.
Right now?
I've got the thanks for watching post roll up in there. They can't see it.
It's just your voice, Kaelin. I'll be like, did you see this one?